to get the public hearing meeting started. Commissioner Creasy will present the courtesy resolution and proclamation for the Boys Club. Boy Scouts, I apologize.
Come on down.
Yeah. Once I get done.
It's a real honor for me to read this. I was a Boy Scout myself many years ago. Resolution number 1804-686. A resolution to honor and congratulate the Boy Scouts of America on the 75th anniversary of the scouting program in Oak Ridge and Anderson County. Whereas the year 2018 marks the 75th anniversary of the city of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and the Boy Scouts of America is celebrating the 75th anniversary of the scouting program in Oak Ridge and Anderson County on October the 8th, 2018. And whereas during the Manhattan Project and then the secret city of Oak Ridge on September the 18th, 1943, the Oak Ridge Journal newspaper article, Boy Scouts Front and Center announced that any boy is a Boy Scout or who would like to become a Scout should leave their name, address, Scout rank, if any, with Captain T.W. Taylor at Town Hall before September the 23rd. The name and addresses of those adults who are interested in backing a scouting program will also be appreciated. Scoutmaster and assistant are ready to organize a troop if enough boys are interested. And whereas the first Boy Scout troop held its inaugural meeting in Oak Ridge on October the 8th, 1943, with 11 boys present. The sponsoring organization of the troop was the Recreation and Welfare Association. And whereas today the Boy Scouts of America is the largest youth service organization in America, and more than 3 million members learning responsible citizenship, character development, and self-reliance through participation in a wide range of outdoor activities, educational programs, and career-oriented programs in partnership with community organizations. And whereas 13 Scout units that exist today have more than 150 volunteer leaders who will help make scouting adventures possible for more than 225 youth members who participate in the scouting program and are celebrating the 75th anniversary of scouting in the city of Oak Ridge and Anderson County. And whereas the city Oak Ridge Scouting Program has produced a total of 920 youth who have earned the rank of Eagle Scout. And whereas the Boy Scouts of America endeavors to develop United States citizens who are physically, mentally, and emotionally fit, have a high degree of self-reliance as evidenced in such qualities as initiative, courage, and resourcefulness, have personal values based on religious concepts, and have the desire and skills to help others, understand the principles of social, economic, and governmental systems in the United States, take pride in their American heritage, and understand our nation's role in the world, have a keen respect for the basic rights of all people, and are prepared to participate in and be leaders in our society. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Anderson County Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session on this 16th day of April, 2018, that we recognize that the October 8, 2018 is the 75th anniversary of the scouting program in Oak Ridge by the Boy Scouts of America, and express our appreciation for the service and character building that the organization has provided through its dedication to local youth in Oak Ridge and throughout Anderson County. And I so move. There you are, sir. Thank you. Thank you for what you did.
I see a lot of people in here associated with the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and everyone. Once we have them all come up here in the middle, and that way they can get their picture made with, they made the effort being here.
That's a really nice one.
Come on up, folks.
Come ahead.
You're associated with the Boy Scouts, come on up, get your picture made. And commissioners, come on around and get in the picture.
Hey, how are you? Doing well. We'll just stay right here. Yeah, you can get in between.
On three. 1, 2, 3. You guys ready on 2? Yeah, there you go. Be prepared. Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Thank you very much. You want me to?
The Boy Scouts are going to stay around and say the pledge and the prayer for us when we start our regular meeting. Commissioner McCamey is going to present the resolution honoring the Clinton Middle School basketball team and Coach Jones. Commissioner McCamey.
I'd like to get the boys all up here. Coach.
Terrible at it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is resolution number 18-4-690, honoring the Clinton Middle School Hawks boys basketball team for an outstanding season. And you would have had to been there. I missed 2 games because of county commission meetings, but I was there for every other game. So. Whereas Clinton Middle School historically has been a perennial power in athletics, however, this year's boys basketball team set the benchmark for athletic excellence for many years to come. And whereas under the tutelage of head coach James Jones and assistant coach Von Harrison, the Hawks did what no other team in school history has ever done. An overall season record of 23 wins and only 4 losses, an undefeated regular season, including a perfect record in the district, the Hall's Christmas tournament champs, regular and tournament district champs for the highly competitive District 2-3A, Tennessee State Sectional 3A runner-up, a 19-game win streak, including an undefeated home season, and an amazing 16-point average winning margin. And whereas individually the Hawks excelled in team unity with 4 players averaging 10 or more points per game and 4 players averaging over 2.5 assists per game, and whereas the Hawks shined both on and off the court with the majority of players on the AB honor roll for the entire season, all while completing countless hours of volunteer community service, including delivery of food baskets to our senior citizens during the holidays. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Anderson County Board of Commissioners, meeting in regular session the 16th day of April 2018, that we honor the historic and extraordinary accomplishments of the Clinton Middle School boys basketball team and the staff for their exemplary success both on and off the court. These young men truly understand that the foundation for team success is built from accountability, hard work, reliability, and above all, putting the we before me. Be it further resolved that we declare Friday, April 20th, 2018 as Clinton Middle School Hawks Boys Basketball Day in honor of the team's remarkable success during this 2017-2018 season, both on and off the court. I'd like to call the boys' names that are here. Some of them couldn't be here, but if you would, just raise your hand when I call your name. Rashawn Bright, Jackson Garner, Lane Harrison, Tyler Morgan, Trace Thackerson, Hunter Rupert, Hayden Hampton. Those are your 8th graders. 7th grade is Matt Bunch, Chase Glendon, Andrew Meyer. Your 6th graders, Anthony Anderson, Tegan Bolinger, Alex Getz, Carter Nelson, Javon Rod, Bryson White, and Rhett Sievers. Congratulations, boys.
One more time.
Look at all those proud parents popping out of the chair.
Thank you, folks. Congratulations. He's getting me worried back there. He's still working.
Ron, appreciate you. Good job, Jackson. Good job, bud. Good job. Let's play out there. Not too.
Hey, wait, where's mine? Did you get it? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner McCamey. This time we'll have the proclamation for the Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month.
Oh, good. No, you come up here, Susan.
I don't have reading glasses.
All right, with me is Susan Moore, and she's a familiar face. She has been a leader in preventing child abuse for many years, and she's come to commission before. It was too cold out there tonight to put the pinwheels up, so we'll deal with that tomorrow.
Tomorrow's another day.
Susan's a regional manager for Prevent Child Abuse Tennessee. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a community condition and problem, and finding solutions depends on involvement among people in the community. And whereas approximately 3 million children are reported abused and neglected in this country each year, with nearly 17,000 children here in Tennessee each year. And whereas Prevent Child Abuse Tennessee, the Tennessee Child Abuse Prevention Network, and the Tennessee Children's Trust Fund are sponsoring several events throughout the month to heighten public awareness of abuse and neglect in communities around the state. These events will provide information and materials that support families to prevent child maltreatment and celebrate people who work with and support children and families. And whereas a statewide Pinwheels for Prevention campaign has been launched through the media, public schools, libraries, social service agencies, and businesses during the month of April to celebrate and bring awareness of the great potential of all children in Tennessee and the need to strengthen all families with support and nurturing. And whereas the Pinwheels for Prevention campaign includes the planting of pinwheel gardens statewide, celebrating community partnerships for strengthening the family and protecting all children from abuse and neglect. And whereas all citizens should become more aware of the negative effects of child abuse and its prevention within the community, and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. Therefore, we, Anderson County Mayor Terry Frank, and members of the Anderson County Board of Commission do hereby proclaim April 2018 as Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month in Anderson County and call upon all citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, medical facilities, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to prevent child abuse, thereby strengthening the communities in which we live. Thank you, Susan. I'll let you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission. Tonight, I want to talk a little bit, briefly, about resilience and, you know, turning the conversation away from the topic of abuse and neglect to the fact that we can prevent a lot of abuse and a lot of neglect. And we know that children who do go through those conditions sometimes come out on the other side as successful contributing members of society. Resilience can be fostered by one single caring, stable, nurturing adult and a stable, nurturing home environment. That's what it takes. It sounds very simple, doesn't it? So we really focus on the prevention side, and we thank you very much. It's an honor to be a part of this community.
Thank you, ma'am, for what you do. Thank you, ma'am, for what y'all do. This time, we'll have the public hearing section on the rezoning of 1549 North Charles Haver Boulevard. Whereas the Anderson County Regional Planning Commission has recommended that the property located at 1549 North Charles Haver Boulevard, Clinton, Tennessee, 37716 is to be rezoned from C1 to A2 district. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anderson County Board of Commissioners does hereby amend the Anderson County zoning map by rezoning property further described as Anderson County Tax Map 65 Parcel 24.0, 1.48 acres from the commercial C1 to rural residential A2. This resolution shall take effect immediately after its notification of passage, the public hearing, the public welfare requiring it. Do we have anybody that wants to comment from the public on this one particular rezoning? Hearing none, okay, we'll go on to the next one. On Haskell, the rezoning of 3250 Hines Creek Road in Haskell. Bear with me just a moment. Whereas the Anderson County Regional Planning Commission has recommended that the property located at 3250 Hines Creek Road, Haskell, Tennessee, is to be rezoned from A2 to A1 district. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anderson County Board of Commissioners does hereby amend the Anderson County zoning map by rezoning property further described as Anderson County Tax Map 56, parcel 29.02, from the rural residential A2 to agriculture, you would think I'd be able to say that, agriculture, forestry, District A1. This resolution shall take effect immediately after the notification and passage, the public welfare requiring it. Is there anybody that would like to speak from the public on the Hines Creek Road rezoning? Hearing none. This concludes the public hearing portion. We'll now go straight into the County Commission meeting. Mr. Chairman.
Call this Anderson County Board of Commissioners, Monday, April 16, 2018 to order. First, we'll do roll call. Please go to the board and register your attendance.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, turn you back.
Everyone's present. Next, we're going to have the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance by Jim McCullough. Please stand.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, Scouts Reverend, dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come together to hear the accomplishments of our fine youth and those who we're trying to protect. Please be with the men and women of our commission as they discuss the things that will make our community better and bring us into another good century. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Sir.
So, yeah, just go back. Then go to regular agenda. That's it. Thank you. Next, we'll do appearance of citizens, and this is for, you get 3 minutes for anything that's not on the agenda. And the rules are always addressed to chairman. There's no personal attacks. And that's it. Do we have anybody that wants to speak?
Well, of course, Mr. Chairman.
State your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Varner. I live at 104 Havenhill Lane in Oak Ridge. That is Mr. Smallridge and Mr. Yeager's district. And I want to ask, what are y'all going to do about this snow in the middle of April? Sorry, that was just me joking. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to the final meeting of the EMS audit. And I don't know what was said there, but I would like to give my 2 cents about how I want this to be approached moving forward. You know, EMS is in such a state of disrepair and is such a big part of the county budget that now is not the time to be pointing fingers and airing out your dirty laundry or anything of that nature. Now is the time for solutions. For Budget Committee, County Commission, the Mayor's Office, Mr. Sweet and the EMS department, Everyone needs to work together to make sure that this very big undertaking is done properly, and we have a solution that's going to last for decades to come, hopefully. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Ron Meredith, 520 Mariner Point Drive in Clinton. What I'd like to address this evening, Commissioners, back on the 14th of March of this year, each one of you received an email from our law director inviting you to stop by his office to discuss reports that were on my radio station, on WYSH Radio. Mr. Yeager invited you to come down to his office to hear explanations of news reports airing on WYSH's Ask Your Neighbors, specifically reports that we had aired on March 12th about specific emails that we had reported that we had published. It evidently had upset our law director that we had put this out. In fact, there's an exact timeline regarding those emails and when we put them out, and that story that's going to publish as soon as I'm finished speaking tonight on WYSHradio.com. It's our understanding, I've spoken to a number of you, that when you met with Mr. Yeager, that he proceeded to tell you guys that I had tried to influence a bidding process here in Anderson County. And therefore, that was why this unfavorable news was coming out on my radio station, and I was not a credible source. Did anybody here have a conversation like that with Mr. Yeager? Is anybody going to admit to speaking to me about having that conversation with Mr. Yeager?
If I had that, I would admit to you. I did not.
Well,
And I told Mr. Malaco the same thing, too.
a number of you have come to my office and told me that you did. I won't call you out here, but you did. You've came to me and told me about it. That being said,
Ron, what did you ask us again?
if you had a conversation with Mr. Yeager that he said I tried to manipulate him on a bidding process.
Correct, I did.
You did.
I did.
You did not? Okay. Well, a number, at least 4 did, because they came and talked to me. I spoke with them about it. And it's not true. It's a lie. And I don't think that our law director needs to be spending the time.
Is this not supposed to be to come up and belittle somebody and go after somebody? Is that not a restriction of this time?
Commissioner Meade, wouldn't it be the same thing if he did have that conversation with Mr. White or with the other commissioners? Wouldn't that be? Don't you think I should be able to?
I'm only talking about a point of order.
Okay.
The 3 minutes of public time is supposed to be asking questions and stuff, okay? But it's not supposed to be going after somebody personally.
I'm not. I'm just defending my radio station and myself. But I will yield to whatever I'm supposed to be doing.
I yield to the chair.
We'll just refrain from any personal attacks and address the chair, please.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, normally our 3 minutes are for comments. They're not to ask, as Mr. Meade has pointed out, it's not to engage in conversation with the commission or debate with the commission. It's strictly to make a comment, and then we can listen to that and make decisions or comment ourselves. But it's not to him engage and ask questions of us.
My reason for doing that was just to have an acknowledgement that it actually took place. But I won't do that again. Bottom line is, I just don't think that that's an appropriate thing for our law director to be doing. It didn't happen. And if there's an issue, our law director should speak to me as opposed to going around because he don't like the news that's on my radio station. And I would ask that something be done about it. It's not appropriate. It's not right. I think that there's something wrong, and our taxpayers fund that. And that if that's the way that our tax dollars are being spent, I think it should be more wisely spent, as opposed to attacking the press because you don't like what's in the press. And if there's something that's erroneously reported or wrong, tell us. We'll fix it. But the fact is, what we reported and what we will continue to report is accurate and it's right. And we'll continue to do it, like it or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, Chairman. My name is Bob Fulcher. I am the park manager for the Cumberland Trail State Park and State Scenic Trail. I've lived in Anderson County for the past 36 years and raised my family here. And on May 19th, upcoming, Cumberland Trail is going to present a project that's unprecedented in the 80 years of Tennessee State Parks, and that we're bringing a story, we think of it as a park story in a way, to the heart of Nashville, presenting the story of the Cumberland Mountains in the beautiful James K. Polk Theater and the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. And we're presenting our story through the music of our neighbors in the Cumberland Mountains. Two of Anderson County's remarkable musicians will be presenting and honored at this event, and three wonderful stories, three important stories from Anderson County's remarkable history. And Anderson County has made a lot of history, a lot of national history. Some of it's well celebrated, and some of it is underappreciated. This Nashville concert's entitled Crossing the Cumberlands, and it will present the Coal Creek March. It's a 19th century creation, a banjo piece that celebrated the miners' rebellion against convict leasing. That rebellion, of course, brought Tennessee the honorable distinction of being the first state to end the practice of selling convict labor to private companies, a practice that was eventually deemed unconstitutional. And on the very date of the terrible tragedy of May 19th, 1902, our May 19th program in Nashville will present the story of the Freighterville mine explosion, the worst mining disaster in American history at that time, and the terrible lessons that were learned from that event brought new efforts for mine safety all through the United States, saved many lives, including a few years later in Anderson County with the Cross Mountain explosion, when some survivors there lived because of new efforts to protect miners in their workplace. We'd like to work with Anderson County officials, and particularly with the schools in Bryceville and Rocky Top, to select some students to witness this event. They should be selected, of course, by the schools. And we would welcome all the descendants and all who love Anderson County's history and our heritage to attend this event. And I ask the consideration of the County Commission to consider some small financial support to support the transportation and probably the need for some overnight lodging if students can be selected by their schools to be heirs and caretakers of this history and witnesses to this commemoration. And thank you very much for your consideration. We'll be pursuing this with the schools, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Fulcher? I apologize, I missed the date. What was the date on that again?
That is Saturday, May the 19th.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that I worked 4 years with Mr. Fulcher, and that was one of the best 4 years I spent in my working career. He got a real desire to preserve and save the history of the Appalachian Mountains and our heritage, and he's to be thanked for that. He's a great man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizens?
I would like to follow up on Commissioner Meade and Commissioner Creasy's statement a minute ago about Mr. Meredith's statement.
Okay.
I'd like to be as transparent about what Mr. Meredith said and what Mr. Yeager said. I'd like to refer this to some committee to where that we could talk about this, to where we'd have the point of order, to where that anything that was said out of order, that we could get to the bottom of it and be as transparent as we can. What committee could I recommend this go to?
Well, I think what we do is after that, because it's always been, there's not been any discussion between this committee and whoever's speaking, because it's always directed, it's under our rules, is you always address the chairman. If there's any debate, it's between the chairman and the citizen.
Okay.
Then after we go into full discussion, under new business, we can bring this up. And we can talk about it and discuss it then. Is that correct, Mr. Palmentary?
At any time during the meeting, a motion can be made to refer a matter. It wouldn't necessarily have to come up under new business.
Just
the
any
matter
time.
was brought to our attention, and we can act on that if Commissioner White chooses to make a motion.
Well, it just seems like, Robert, that after these two gentlemen spoke, that Mr. Meredith quit talking. And I just wondered if there was more to be said. I think it behooves us all to, anytime that our bidding or purchasing is in question, we ought to hear or understand what has been said. We don't want anybody to think that somebody that's got the power that Mr. Meredith has got the influence to influence our bidding process. I guess that's what I'm trying to bring out. We'd hate to think that he could do that.
Well, Commissioner White, I did speak as chairman with the law director about this issue, and he had some conversation about that, and I spoke with Mr. Malacote as well. And I really didn't see an issue other than it was maybe a perception. But I did speak with the law director and Mr. Malacote.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if you're sitting out in Dutch Valley watching this as we're talking about this, Mr. Meredith came to the podium and was addressing you, and then he was called down, so to speak. If I'm sitting out in Dutch Valley listening to this, I may want to hear what all has been said. But since you said that are on top of the situation, it's your call.
Well, no, I agree with you, but if you want to make a motion to take it to Operations Committee or somewhere.
I was asking for directions, what I was doing.
I think that's what I would do. I think that would be the proper place to take it up. Or, well, actually, we have a Legal Services Advisory Committee meeting scheduled for the 3rd, May the 3rd.
Well, I'd like to make a motion then that we either send it to Operations or to Legal Services. Whichever one that you would.
I would second operations.
Operations. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second to send this to Operations for discussion.
Would you clarify what you're sending? You're sending the discussion, Mr. Meredith?
To clarify what I heard was and I'm not trying to put words in Mr. Meredith's mouth, but it seems to me like that he was saying that the law director accused him of having influence over some of the bid process from our purchasing department. Am I the only one that heard that?
That's what I said.
Well, that's what I got out of that.
I don't know why it goes operations. Any radio station can have
Let's stay on task.
That's what I heard I heard Mr. Meredith say that. I would like to hear the law director respond to that. In this committee, in this meeting, or in Operations, or wherever it would be appropriate.
We have a motion and a second to send this to Operations for discussion between Ron Meredith and Jay Yeager to discuss about, I guess, the accusations maybe? Is that what you're?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Wandale.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to hear this in the operations, but I'd much prefer Mr. Meredith and Mr. Yeager meet themselves, and I don't think it's the operations committee's job to try to debate the issue between two individuals, one being the law director, one being a media spokesperson, which does a great job. But look, I think it needs to go, if Mr. Meredith feels there's an issue, there's a process in this county, it's called the Ethics Committee. He can file an ethics complaint, send it to the Ethics Committee, and then they can take action there. We're going to address that issue later in the meeting tonight, I think, so we can do it there. But again, if that's what the body here wants to do, is bring it to operations, we can bring it to operations, but I suspect there's going to be a lot of discussion and a lot of commotion, and what we get done, who knows, and then that information will be used in a court of law, and I don't think that's the function of the Operations Committee unless I'm mistaken. So I'm with Commissioner Alderson or whoever made the comment to send it to legislative, but the other process for Mr. Meredith is the Ethics Commission. He can file an ethics complaint, go get it notarized, write down what you think happened, what was said, what wasn't said, and send it to ethics, and then that gets the process going, and that's why we have the Ethics Committee in this county. So I'll vote against going to operations, not because I don't believe any of the accusations, but because it's not the proper place for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to change your motion?
Yes, I would like to do just exactly what Tracy said.
I can't repeat that, Commissioner White.
Have you got that?
If the maker of the motion and the seconder be willing to withdraw their
I
motion,
withdraw my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to send this. Let the individuals take this to the Ethics Committee. If not, I think we should send it to the Legislative Committee.
Legislative or legal services?
Sorry, Legal Commission, I apologize.
So the motion is to send it to ethics.
Well, I mean, the options are there for the individual.
If for some reason the ethics committee cannot take it up,
Right.
then it would go to legal services advisory.
I think that would be appropriate, unless I'm mistaken.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's see. Next, we have the approval of agendas. First is consent agenda.
Chairman, I'd like to pull item 5, I believe 5A, the first robotics team, 4265 Secret City Wild Bots, to go on to our regular agenda, please.
Where do you want to put it?
Say 4A.
4A? Mm-hmm. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next is the regular agenda. Any other changes on consent agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I would like to request to move the Budget Committee hearing minutes from the consent agenda to the regular agenda under the budget report. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
What did you want to make that
To
Under
budget.
the Budget Committee report, that'd be 10A, after the Budget Committee has given the report.
Have you got that, Natalie?
The Budget Committee hearing minutes, it's page 13 on the consent agenda. Move it to regular agenda under item 10A, Budget Committee reports.
No, that's the regular agenda.
Yeah, let me try it again, Mr. Chairman. Well, in all due respect, maybe I'm mistaken. I'm looking at the hearing minutes, and it's under the consent agenda. If you're saying it's on the consent agenda and the regular agenda, I'd be happy to withdraw my motion and cover what the item is I want to cover there. But it looks like to me it's on the consent agenda, page 13 of the consent agenda. Now, if anyone here can show me I'm wrong, I'd be happy to say I apologize and move on.
Well, we'll just make sure we take that up.
Yeah, that's all I was wanting to do.
Okay.
think it's pretty important that people at home know what was on that agenda.
I agree. I agree. Any other changes to the consent agenda?
Did we vote on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and vote on that we're going to discuss page 13. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other changes to the consent agenda? Next, we have the regular agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that we pull, it's on our regular agenda, page 46, item number 30, which is falling under the budget. It's an appropriation to fall as item 4B, right after the Secret City Wildbot team, please.
So you want to move that to 4B?
Yes, please.
All right. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Any other changes to the regular, Commissioner Fritz?
Mr. Chairman? Last month, I made a motion that we move a particular item, and after the meeting, I was talking to, and again, this purchasing agent did not talk to me about this. She didn't make any requests. She wasn't complaining or anything like that. It's just a personal observation I made. Then afterwards, in talking to her, she was very grateful that we made this move, because I found out afterwards, you know, she's got small kids at home, and in order to come to this meeting, since her husband works, she has to get a babysitter to watch the kids while she comes to this meeting. We don't pay her people enough to have to pay a babysitter to come here for sit here all night to take 5 minutes to present a report. And so, until further notice, I'd like to move the purchase agent report at our meetings to immediately following the public hearings. That way she can present it, her 2 or 3 minute report, and go on home and send that baby sit her home and not have to lose a lot of money and not keep her here all night. So I'd like to make that a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to make this a permanent move. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Annette, do you have that? Okay. Any other corrections or additions?
Motion to approve agenda as amended.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. 4A.
Coach Scott. We need you at the podium, please, so that you can explain what the first robotics team, 4265, of the Secret City Wildbots team is up to these days, please.
Well, first, thank you very much, County Commission, for having us here tonight. The Wildbots is a FIRST Robotics team. FIRST Robotics is an international organization, and they have several different divisions. Our division is the high school division, so our robots tend to be about this tall and weigh a maximum of 120 pounds. But there's a competition annually, and about 7,000 teams internationally compete throughout the world. This year, we won one of the regionals, which allows us an invitation to the World Championships. It is an amazing opportunity for our kids. We'll travel to Houston this week, where we'll compete with hundreds of other robots from 25 different countries around the world, and compete for essentially a world championship. It is the only sport I know where every child goes pro. So.
Awesome.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment. My sister lives in Panama City, Panama, and we were talking about this team. She said that the television is very limited for English, just regular TV. So she has a normal news station on, and during the breaks, they don't get commercial breaks. They show bits and pieces of what's going on in America. And there was a huge segment about what these kids are doing. And it's pretty amazing. When I grew up, I could remember hearing the phone ring and I would go running through the house screaming, I got it, go into the kitchen, grab the phone off the wall, and that cord was about 30 feet long. If you were fast enough to get the phone, that was great. If you weren't, you probably tripped over the cord. Now robots are making everything from our telephones to the refrigerators that we use, the automobiles that we drive, and this is the future for these kids. I think it's wonderful that you're going to the World Championship down in Houston, Texas. And I'm just tickled to death that it's in our own county.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
And with that being said, we being the Oak Ridge Commissioners, had received a letter requesting funding to help the students get to Texas. There's 18 students?
Yeah, we have a total of 25 going on the trip.
They have mentors, they have coaches, they have a pickup truck that's pulling a trailer full of valuable and necessary equipment. They will have lodging, they'll need food, obviously.
They want us to feed them, yeah.
But the 6 commissioners did get together and pulled money out of our solid waste funds. And that's portion 4B for Natalie. 4A and 4B. So you can just kind of hang tight if you would. And I'd like Natalie to come forward with her request for an appropriation.
So budget amendment number 30 is the one that Teresa or Commissioner Scott has asked that we take up. There was another revision made to this budget amendment. So just to give a little bit of background, because I'm coming along on some of this history as well. So every year there's $12,000 in contributions in the solid waste fund. That it's now my understanding that the commissioners get to delegate that out to the school system as they wish. Any of those unspent funds in past years roll down to the reserve fund in 116. That's what's prompting this budget amendment. So we have enough money on the expenditure appropriation code to be able to make these contributions. So, excuse me, let me catch my breath. Commissioner Mead came by my office to adjust the amount of his contribution so that a full 5,000 would go to the Wild Bots. And then we also had one other
he didn't
contribution
know how
come
much
through.
The team was getting.
Thank you.
So that's what's being, the revised budget amendment accomplishes those 2 contributions that are said in the comment field, and that's what's Commissioner Scott seeking your approval on.
Oh, motion to approve, please.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We don't need to go to the board and vote. We do.
Well, I mean, if we can see if there are any opposing, or if we can do a board
Well,
vote.
let's just go ahead and go to the board and vote
Please.
because it's an appropriation.
Who are you calling? And for the folks at home, we have these new machines that we're using, and they look like just like telephones.
And Annette gave me the check request, so we'll have those checks cut tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Let the record reflect it as unanimous vote. Thank you.
Bring home the trophy.
Can I?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He didn't know how much they were.
I did not know we were getting that much. Yeah, we'll do everything we can to bring back some hardware.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add, probably most of you have never been to one of these matches, but it is amazing what these guys do and the way they get these robots that they actually build from parts to do the things that they do. When there's another local match, make sure it's in the paper and people can go. Thanks.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody. Please come out. Absolutely. Actually, we'll have a match in June 9th.
June 9th.
There'll be a tournament at the Oak Ridge Festival.
Oh, that's right.
Come out and check it out.
Well, come back and give us a report.
Excellent.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Be happy to. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the public hearing report from Vice Chairman Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the public hearing, I read off Resolution 18-04-688 on North Charles Severs Boulevard, and I move to approve this.
Have a motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Wandell?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note that both of these items have been forwarded with approval from zoning committee, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Planning Commission.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And Resolution 18-04-689, the Hines Creek Road rezoning, I move to approve.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, the Director of Schools. Oh, purchasing, I'm sorry.
You about to get in trouble.
I thought you was helping me keep up with it.
Well, I was going to set you up for a little bit there.
Does anyone have the page for the agenda? For purchasing? Yeah, for purchasing, I'm sorry. Start at 57. 57, thank you.
Thank you very much for moving me up. I know oftentimes also folks from departments that have interest in the contracts I bring to you also wait until the purchasing part of the agenda comes up, so I'm sure they'll appreciate that too. I also just wanted to say that tomorrow marks a year since I started with the county.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and the family-friendly environment has been great. You know, I moved up here from Florida without the grandparent care I have for my child, so the family-friendly environment working for the county's been a great benefit. So, moving on to the items. We have 7 contracts in Section A of the purchasing agenda that have been approved by the law director. Would you like to approve them individually or?
Second.
Have a motion second to approve as a group. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And we have 8 contracts that are pending law director approval. Would you like to approve them individually or as a group?
Move approval as a group pending law director.
Second.
Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no problem. That's items 1 through 8, correct?
Yes.
Just a question real quick, Catherine. I know you and the team have done a lot of work on the SunTrust purchasing card services. So what's been proposed here is issuing a contract to SunTrust for 2 years with renewal options. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I included the evaluation score sheet in
Yes,
the
ma'am.
agenda. You see the.
Yes, the whole thing's in there. I appreciate it. This is Anderson County going direct. We're not piggybacking off of anybody else.
Correct.
And there's more, and I'm not going to speak for you, I'm just asking, the way I interpreted it, there's more types of procedures in place, let's call it, to have maybe more documentation, or
Yes.
there's more ways to limit certain cards to certain supervisors and amounts and those kinds of things, and all that can be controlled through finance down to the department heads, correct?
Yes, and we'll be bringing you that policy next month. There was a big piece of it that we couldn't work on until we got the contract with SunTrust in place. So hopefully by next month, we'll have all those parts measured out, and then also the actual steps needed to complete a purchase.
Thank you and Finance Department for all the work you did. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, and I like to thank the evaluation committee that worked on that. That was Commissioner Warfield and Libby Smith and myself and Mr. Jim Woodward and Stephanie Wells. Did a great job.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Director of Schools.
Good evening. It's always an honor to come before you tonight. And just to let you know, Clinton High School also has a FIRST robotics team. We had our teacher retired last year, and they come in 20th this year, which, you know, I can't say enough about Oak Ridge because they call it's not competition. There's another name for it, but all the teams get together and help each other. And if you've ever been there, but just the registration to the one in Knoxville is $5,000. So it is a very, it costs about, with Clinton's group, they raise about $30,000 to $40,000. And if they're going to this group, they need to raise another $30,000. So I thank the board for that because those are our next generation of engineers. So they do an excellent job. So why is the entry fee so expensive? When you look at it, when you buy the entry fee, they give you parts to a robot. So part of that's the robot, and part of it is that they have to rent. I mean, they rent Thompson Bowling Arena to do that when they do it. And for every one they do, it's not just $5,000 for all of them. Every time you enter one, and I think Oak Ridge went to 3 this year. So it is. And you know, in Anderson County, we actually have a coach, just like an academic coach. They work just like a football coach, and they work with that team all year. So it's pretty neat to watch those students do that. Yes. Just a few things. The Air Force ROTC program at Clinton High School, they have been nominated. If you looked in our report to go, there was 327 academic teams that participated in this program, and they chose 16 teams to go to Washington, D.C. for a week to compete in an academic, kind of like a Scholars Bowl. And Clinton High School was one of 16 teams in the nation that's going to get to go this year. So it's an all expense paid trip for that group to go. So that's pretty neat that our ROTC does that. The other thing that I can't tell you a lot about it, but there's going to be we're going to have a press release on Wednesday about a grant that we've applied for from Clinton High School, Clinton Middle School, and Norwood Middle School. You're going to want to watch that because that's going to be really exciting. It has to do with our new college and career readiness that we're looking at Clinton Middle School. Part of that, as you know, if you've been to any of our banquets lately, now we have culinary arts at Clinton High School and Anderson County High School, and they do an amazing job. Next year, we will have a pre-culinary at Clinton Middle School, and also we're looking at putting in coding at Clinton Middle School, so we're excited about that. On another thing at Clinton Middle School, if you saw in our reports, I think they've read about 4,000 books this year. They have really been working hard this year. So those are just a few things. Another thing that's just to be proud of, as you look at the high school, we are completely one-to-one now, and we're starting on the one-to-one at elementary school. But that high school project was a little over $1 million to get everything done, the wiring and everything. And we've done all of that without borrowing a penny. So do I have any questions?
Commissioner Scott.
I did want to ask about the one-to-ones, where you stood with that, as well as, you know, the Teacher Supply Depot.
Yes. We're going to give you a report. We're still trying to compile how much we've used this year. But one of the great things that we're using that for is, as you know, we've got our summer programs coming up, our Read to Be Ready grants, and we're going to be able to supply our teachers with a lot of materials that they won't have to buy out of that. So we've already got the dates planned for next year. The first one's going to be on August the 4th. We'll be at the Walmart trying to fill a bus up with school supplies here.
sometime in the middle of July, so I guess I'm gonna have to spend the night up there. So it's all for a good cause.
Well, and the main reason why I'm asking is because all over the United States right now, we're hearing stories of the teachers that are being frustrated over having to pull money out of their pockets to spend it on school supplies, and they're not getting anything back when it comes to filling out their taxes or even education-wise.
There's two things there. One is that one. The other one is, as you know, one of the things I really push for is site-based management. And 2 years ago, when I took over as superintendent of schools, we started, the first year we gave every school $5,000, and last year we gave every school $10,000. And they've been able to use that to fund a lot of the things like, as you know, you can't use any money to buy a teacher's chair. So I guess we've gave away probably 40 teacher chairs this year from people that have donated them. And that's a way that you can buy a teacher's desk, because all the money that goes into the schools is used for students. It's not used for the teachers.
That's right.
So those are some great things that we've really been able to accomplish.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Doc, one thing, have you heard anything on the Recovery Center?
We got a letter from Lieutenant Governor McNally, just kind of acknowledged that he knew we were interested in it, but we've not got any other thing yet. I think they're still waiting in on the budget, so we'll see that.
I heard you talking about it on the Channel 95.
Yep.
And also I talked to John Reagan
Yes.
this week about it, and they haven't got anywhere, but it's...
We're going forward with our restructuring of Clinch River Community School to really do some things to really get involved with the mental health of our students. The lady tonight that spoke on our pinwheels, and she is true. You know, every student needs a caring adult. They need one they can trust, but they also need a good home life. Well, we can't fix the home life, but we can give them that caring adult, and we can help put services in the home to make sure that the students get the help they need. So we're really excited about some things we've got planned for next year.
I think you do a good job at that now, and I really appreciate the effort that you're putting into that.
Thank you.
We got to go to Nashville and talk to our legislators about
Yes.
that.
Hey, and I think I have to say the community support that you all give us, especially like the Chamber of Commerce, when you all go and do our principle of a day. One of the things, if you go by Lake City Middle School right now, there's a brand new sign, and that Melissa Charles was a very big instrumental in that, and she got to fall in love with that school when she did principal for a day. So, you know, it takes everybody working together. We all have things we want to do and we can't do, but I really appreciate this board and the openness that you have. If I'm doing something wrong or there's something, you always call me and say, hey, what's going on? And I really appreciate that. And if we can do anything, we're here for that.
Okay,
Thank
Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Parrott, I just wanted to follow up. I think it's probably been addressed, but the issue we had with pay a couple of months ago, do you know if that's been resolved?
That was resolved that week. Natalie and her team did an excellent job on that. They actually worked Saturday and Sunday and brought checks in for people that needed those, and they've put some things in place that won't ever happen again. And I really appreciate that, because we do, when you talked about the medium income tonight, we've got a lot of people that work for our school system that
yes, sir.
that need that money.
Yes,
So
sir. Thank you, and thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just one other thing, Dr. Parrott, when you was talking about Melissa Charles and her husband, these are people that really give back to the community. You know, they do well with the Boys and Girls Club and so many other things that they help sponsor, but they have really, what she's done for the Boys and Girls Club and her husband with this bicycle program that they have, and they basically did this. This is a $10,000 project on the sign, the electronic sign, so.
yeah,
just wanna say thank you.
I hope some of you got to come out and see the second annual art show. Melissa Charles, Kincaid House, she donated that, and the culinary arts people were there. And I had a board member from Knox County was telling me that they're on the board in Knox County, was talking about how that this event was just special because the children were dressed up. It was just an amazing time. It's kind of like when something happens you're proud of, and you can just stand back and you kind of get teared up. That's kind of the way I was, because, and I didn't have anything to do with it. I just gave them the opportunity, and the art people took over. But I tell you, as a school system in the county, we needed to be proud that night. So there's a lot of things to be proud of. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Scott.
Dr. Parrott, I have an article from one of the newspapers about don't be an accidental drug dealer. In Tennessee, 55% of those using opioids recreationally got them from family and friends. On the 28th of this month, the DEA is doing a nationwide get rid of your drugs event. And they're going to be setting up stations at all the police departments. It's everything from medicated hand lotion to aspirins and cough syrup and et cetera, et cetera. What are you doing in the schools to educate these students to stay out of mom and dad stuff, or even teaching the parents?
There is a program that the SROs, and I'll get the name wrong, so I won't, it's not the DARE program anymore. It's a newer program that the SROs are really working on in Anderson County schools. And it talks about just those things, how to, that you can't just self-medicate. You can't just get those things. And I think that's one of the bigger things we're doing. The other thing through our health and wellness programs.
Okay. And after we're done here, can I ask Stephanie to step forward, Mr. Chairman? Okay.
Stephanie may know the name of that program.
Life skills training?
Life skills training.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like Stephanie to come up for a moment. And the reason why I'm asking for Stephanie to step forward is I know for a fact that ASAP does a lot with the students at the schools, especially with the I Am One campaign. I've handed out a lot of T-shirts and encouraged a lot of students to sign the banners at the games themselves. And I think it's important for the two of them to tie together. But go ahead.
Well,
Elaborate.
we're really fortunate to have a fantastic school system with which we can collaborate, and through Dr. Parrott's leadership and of course Greg Deal, Coordinated School Health and Project Aware, we're able to target interventions for students from elementary school all the way through 12th grade. And what's important is that we supersaturate their education and incorporate healthy messages from kindergarten all the way until they graduate from high school. If we can enable them and empower them to make healthy choices, then we'll set them up with protective factors to outweigh those risk factors that every community in America has. But the monitoring the medications in the home is really a significant way that people in our community can stand up and say, I am one who will make sure that prescription medication abuse does not start in our home. And so on the 28th is the DEA's time for people to really clean out their medicine cabinets, do a little spring cleaning. Hopefully it'll be spring really by that point in time, and get those medications out of the home. All of the police departments in Anderson County have the permanent disposal bins inside the department, but this is a time in which Clinton Police Department and the Oak Ridge Police Department will be having a day where people can come by between 10 and 2 and drop off their medication.
You can explain the box.
And Commissioner Scott also has a home medication lockbox that we encourage families to use in their homes to secure the medications, to make sure that there's no accidental ingestion of prescription medications, and also no intentional abuse where someone might steal those medications. But we're fortunate to be able to partner with the school system and collaborate in many ways, and especially with the upcoming Family Drug Treatment Court.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to elaborate that it does start at home, and it does start with education in the schools as well. But thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioner Meade.
I just wanted to say that if you're not sure it needs to be gotten rid of that way, then take it.
Yes, yes. Please dispose of it properly.
Yes.
County Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have one item on the agenda tonight. That's resolution number 1804-687, authorizing the execution of a contract between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and Anderson County for the purpose of implementing our annual litter grant program.
Move to approve. Second. A motion second, any discussion? Mr. Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, do we know what this amount is?
I cannot, I don't know what it is for this year. I think the annual grant is in the 40,000, 44,000, something like that. 44,000, I believe, was last year's total, but I'll have to go back and check. We have applied for special little grants in the past and also won those where we've been able to do other things.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Creasy.
Yeah, while you're up, Mayor, do you have any information on the Clinton Bridge?
I do not. I do not. Commissioner Meredith probably has plenty of information because he's been dealing with this.
I was asked by a constituent recently.
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Creasy.
What would you like to know?
Well, yeah, I've been told that TDOT's going to replace the bridge.
That is correct.
Okay.
Probably start this fall. 2 or 3 year project. They'll build the new bridge right next to the oval. It's correct.
Does the Green Bridge stay?
No.
It is gone.
I thought we had some options as to keep the Green Bridge.
Those options will not be exercised. The city can't maintain that kind of money to keep it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the second person that's asked me about it, and they were both Oak Ridgers, and I think they may be concerned about directing the traffic around and coming through their neighborhood or something. I'm not sure exactly, but they was asking me what information I had on it, and I said the only thing I've heard is that it's going to be replaced, and that's all I knew about it. And
yes.
So I wanted to get an answer from someone that may know more than I did.
It's going to look really nice. Yes, sir. Part of it, yes.
Any other questions or comments to the mayor?
I'd like to follow up on that. Does the Green Bridge stay while the new one's going to be constructed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
You want a break? Let's take a short 5-minute break. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll take a 5-minute break.
hiding a Coke here somewhere. Wow, can't see it on camera.
Would you get in trouble?
Would you get in trouble?
Yeah.
Next, we have Law Director.
Thank you, members of the commission. Just a couple things for you tonight. Under the contract approvals, does anyone have any questions there? I do have one I want to speak about. Let's see if Stephanie's here. If you'll notice, under number 9, the TVA boat ramp, some of you may know the story here, but I'm not sure the public at home knows about it. But Stephanie Wells and Commissioner Warfield with the Conservation Board have hit a home run. They've got a grant to where we're going to get another new boat ramp at Anderson County Park. This thing's going to be spectacular. It's going to be, believe it or not, bigger than the one we've got now. We'll be able to hold more fishing tournaments, be able to put more boats in the water at any given time, and I'm excited about watching this process take place because evidently they actually pour this thing on shore and roll it off into the water piece by piece. So this is quite exciting for anybody that uses Anderson County Park, and as soon as I find out when they're going to be installing that, I'll let everybody know and we can go up and take a look at that. Any other questions on Section A of the contract approvals? Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Meade.
If there's any, we approved a bunch of stuff today that you hadn't had a chance to review yet completely.
I think most of those have been approved. They may not be back out to purchasing, or they've not been processed back through purchasing.
Okay, the other thing I was saying is, how would we address if there's some little minor change, like if it says automatic renewal and you need to delete that? Are we kind of agreeing that it's subject to his changes, if there's one necessary?
You know the things that I'll strike on those things, but what happens on those typical provisions that we strike, such as auto renewal, is I cross it out and I'll initial it, and then Ms. Mary comes back, Catherine, and initials beside that, and that's what's sent to the actual contractor for signature. So they know that our position is we're not going to accept that provision.
Thank
you. Okay. Just wanted to give you a quick general sessions update. Many of you guys attended the grand opening celebration, and I do appreciate you, all of you that came out. Just a couple people, and I want to be brief about this, to thank, and I think I read a list of names down there when we opened that facility, and it is quite nice, I believe. The best thing about this whole General Sessions Division 2 is we're putting a legacy issue to bed for 20 or 30 years. And this commission's got a history of doing that. We've had several issues we've reached finality on. We're fixing to reach Blockhouse Valley finality on that, and that thing's been going on since the mid-90s. Fixing to reach finality on the relocation of Glen Alpine Convenience Center. That's been going on. I think the first motion was 1984, but this is another one. We're putting this thing to bed for another 20 to 30 years. We got all the space in the world down there, but there's a lot of people that partnered in this, and a lot of people we want to thank, and certainly the city of Oak Ridge, Mayor Gooch, City Manager Mark Watson, Chief Agagi, the entire city council. They were great to work with, and they certainly came through and in the clutch when we needed a little extra money to finish this project. Certainly Chuck Grant with Michael Brady. They threw in a lot of free work with all the changes that we had during the whole process, and we do appreciate you, Chuck. Thank you for all that. But also Travis Solomon and Mark Boyd, the two fire marshals in Oak Ridge, and Arnold Blackwell, their codes inspector. They were really easy to work with, and they all worked for us. They would point out an issue, tell us how to fix it, and we get it done quickly. I do want to thank Roger Lloyd, Building and Grounds Supervisor. He was phenomenal to work with. Roger, if you don't know, he did all the behind the scenes moving. He did the landscaping for us. We didn't have to hire anybody. Did the mulch work, did the signage, you name it. He was there just about every day towards the end. And especially Brian Young and David in IT. I can't imagine how much money Brian has saved us. When you look at this project, you look at the appropriated money, Well, you need to look at what the final cost figures are, what the invoices are, and you'll see that Brian Young and David saved us a load of money on what that original IT bid was for. And thank you, Brian. I really appreciate you so much. Chief Johnson and Lieutenant Val, Commissioner Val, they had the inmate work crew down there. I don't know how many times. They met me at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday and painted all day long, painted 4.5 rooms on one Saturday, and all I did was feed them a hamburger and a Mountain Dew. But great guys to work with. But I have to say, Commissioner Val was down there moving furniture in a suit and tie, but thank you, Lieutenant Val. But Chief Johnson was awesome to work with and getting his inmate work crew. They moved the entire court. We didn't hire anybody to move that. That was all done with inmate labor, and they were super good to work with. And of course, County Commission, you guys were great to work with. All of you supported this endeavor. They know, you know it's a partnership. You know it's over with, that we've got a great facility down there. But I have to speak very solid of the Oak Ridge commissioners that spent their time down there. Jerry Creasy was down there towards the end, Bob Smallridge. Commissioner Yeager donated the windows, the 4 windows, out of his own pocket. Steve Mee, but Catherine Denenberg, I don't know if you realize this, but Catherine was with me daily towards the end. She stayed on the contractor worse than I could, but she really got the work done, and I appreciate everything you did, Catherine. She was helping me with flooring quotes and helping with the codes folks, and just anything we needed. Catherine was there and did a fantastic job, and I can't say enough about Commissioner Scott, what she did. And Teresa, I know looking back on this thing, when you first approached me about a vision you had of the old Oak Ridge Senior Center, and I look back on those days, and that was years ago, but now that's a reality. You can look at it, and we'll know from 20, 30 years out, we got this issue fixed. No longer are we renting from anyone. It's our building, got plenty of space, and it'll be there for a long time. The contractors and the engineers told us we've got a tank of a building, and it's fixed up really nice, ready to go. Back to this, we did some sheriff's training.
Hold on a second, Jay.
Yes.
Before you move on, it's been brought to my attention that we got an issue down there with the fire watch that we're supposed to have. What have we done for that?
Well, our original plan was to try to do it by committee and train up sheriff's deputies, the circuit court clerk people to work with us, building maintenance, and the bailiffs. That's not going to work. The fire marshal now wants somebody that's dedicated there all the time. So what we're going to do now is we've got a light duty officer that's going to be down there for the time being. We think we've got one more person coming back on light duty. These are people that can't return to their normal job functions, whether it's an EMS or the sheriff's office, but they can do light duty. Instead of sitting at home, they can come to work and do paperwork or whatever that, and here we can put them on a dedicated detail of fire watch. And I think that'll work. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to go back and appropriate some money for somebody for the next 4 or 5 months while Emory Valley Center is remodeling their building. We'll have to have somebody dedicated to it. But it looks like we may have another person following up on light duty that's coming back off disability status. And so we'll try to take care of it with those individuals. If not, then we'll have to go back and hire somebody to do the fire watch
So do we have anybody doing it now, or will we have
Yes, we've
somebody
got
doing it
an
tomorrow?
individual that's on light duty that's doing it right now. I think they started on Friday or maybe today, one of the two.
Okay.
And Jerry, they walk around and look for smoke and fire. So even though there's a training session, we've got the training protocol. We have the fire marshal helps us with that. There's a handout. There's a log they have to write down. We thought the committee idea was going to work, but it broke down rather quickly. So, yes.
Is that only when schools in session?
Yes, it's only when we have dual purpose, when we're single purpose with just the court in session or the court's not in session, the school's in session, we're okay. But when we're in dual purpose, we've had to have that fire watch protocol in place. So
And that's until they move out.
until they move out.
And that's saving us actually how much money?
Well, that's that firewall and that,
Yeah, there's
what was it,
significant amount of
$6,000 plus the $50,000 in the smoke and fire alarm. So we're, $56,000 is what we're saving there. But if this doesn't work out, then I'll come back to you. I'm hoping that Kim's working with me on this. We're hoping we can keep light duty people in that job. If not, then we'll have to hire somebody at a very low wage to handle that. Any more questions on General Sessions Division 2? Okay, we did conduct some sheriff's training on constitutional law and supervisory liability. Do appreciate the opportunity to be out there. Item G is the Ethics Commission appointments. We need to reconstitute that Ethics Commission. If you would, we do have some appointments that need to be made. I've attached a copy of the most recent amendment to the your agenda packet that has our most recent ethics policy in there. Mayor, you have yourself and an extra appointment to appoint. County Commission has another appointment on that. So
Jay, hold on a second. What page is that on in our?
it's
agenda?
it right after my report.
I think that's what we're trying to find.
You'll see the Ethics Committee.
Page 12?
Yes, sir, on the regular agenda.
So my point is, during the next month, be thinking about the individuals that, if you have 2 appointments, I think Tim, the school system has an appointment on there, the board has an appointment on there. So all our elected office holders have an appointment. They can appoint a designee to fill their spot. So we'll go ahead and reconstitute that committee, get them in place, and the first meeting we'll elect the officers and get that rolling again. This will be the first time they've had to meet since, I believe, '08, but we'll go ahead and get that started. Any questions on that?
Yes, Jay.
Yes.
Now, what about the separation between the law director and the ombudsman? Is that going to change, or are you going to still be both, or?
Oh, you can change it any time. That's the pleasure of County Commission.
Okay. I know we've had some, maybe, discussion on the side about this, whether that's, ethical, or do we need to do that the law director serves as the ombudsman, or both? And, we talked about maybe asking Bud Armstrong to serve.
That's a different issue.
Okay.
That's the replacement when the ombudsman has a conflict.
Okay.
Then we need to replace the ombudsman. It's written in there that way.
Okay.
So what we'll do is, this last ethics complaint named everybody, the one from Mr. Jones, named everybody on commission, named me, named the HR director. So in that case, I think that's what you're referring to. We'll need to get another ombudsman in place to handle that, because I certainly couldn't fill that role, being the subject of an ethics complaint. So what we'll do is reconstitute the committee, and then, as you can see in that, the ethics committee chair can appoint a new ombudsman to fill those shoes, or they can do that role themselves. But anyway, we'll get started on that next month, be thinking about those appointments that we need to get in place.
Commissioner Wandale, hold on a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Should we send this to a committee to be addressed, or?
Maybe nominating, it's up to you.
That's what I was thinking. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to forward the reconstitution of the Ethics Commission to nominating committee.
Have a motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, any more questions on that issue? The last thing I need approval on is the cyber claim approval. As you know, myself and Natalie and Brian and Kim met with the insurance adjuster on the cyber claims policy. Everything that was put forward from the breach, the entire loss, was submitted. They eliminated less than $10,000. You have that before you on a spreadsheet. We came down, they took off our deductible of $5,000. Then they gave us back possession of $10,000 worth of hardware that Brian can utilize now in IT. He can clean it up, use it as parts or whatever Brian wants to do, but we got that back. So we're down to that final figure, that $90,000 figure, and I need a motion to accept that, and they'll write the check to us immediately.
Have a motion and second. Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay, just curious, has the mayor, have you seen this $90,000 reimbursement proposed on the Just want to make sure you're in favor of it.
Yes, well, I did ask some questions of the IT director about it, given what I know, and just to make sure that we weren't making a fraudulent claim. But there were some issues, so I was fine with that.
So you're in support of us accepting this as presented?
Well, I don't have, well,
That's why I was asking.
I don't have all the details, so I know that early on, very early on in the investigation, the insurance, I can't remember what his name is, Paul Mangrum had a conversation with me, and at that point in time, I felt like it was more of an internal issue, and I said that I wasn't comfortable proceeding. But again, I don't, in talking with the IT director, he felt like there were some weaknesses there that applied. He walked me through what the policies were from the insurance standpoint. So going with what he said, I feel comfortable.
So you'd be in favor of us accepting this $90,000 roughly?
Yes, I think if, however, and this, I'm going to go back to the conversation that I originally had with Paul Mangrum. If it ends up being something that is fraud related, he said we could deal with that at that point in time. So those were his words to me.
I just wanted to ask. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate your feedback. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you get a vote on
We
that?
have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Commissioner McCamey.
Jay, does 90,000 go back in the county general fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the total amount that we spent? Do you know that right off?
It's
the bat?
115. It's in your packet there.
They may not have.
114,658.
They've got the itemized breakdown. They got the spreadsheet.
Are you saying the 114,658?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and now remember, you got a $5,000 deductible that's taken out of that. $10,000 is for the equipment that's being returned to us that can be surplused or used by Brian. So there's $15,000 of it. The rest of that claim, from the 105 up, they did not allow. There was a, you can see it there, there was a laptop, a ThinkPad, some services that they didn't feel like was accurate, so they didn't allow those claims. But that was a very small amount.
Have a motion, say any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I know we're
Commissioner.
going to receive the money. Have I missed the report? Have I missed, or,
Let me try to answer that for you, and I've got this news from the media, is that the Sheriff's Department is working on a summary. I don't think that they'll ever close it, and this is just what I'm gathering from the news media, is that they'll never close it because it's ongoing investigation. Is that correct, Lieutenant Bow? Yes. And that they're working on a summary now, and they will release that to us. And I have asked that it be released to County Commission before it's released to the news media. So we'll have a heads up on what's coming out.
okay, so I've not missed it.
You haven't missed it. And that's my understanding.
Thank you.
We have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, do we get
That's to accept the $90,000.
Yes.
Mr. Fritz, I'm sorry.
I'm going to follow up on your comments and everything. Have they said when this follow-up is going to be? I mean, this has been going on for, I mean, I get a lot of questions about this and a lot of comments about this, because this has been going on forever and ever and ever. You know, when is this official report going to come out? It may be ongoing, it may continue to be ongoing, but the citizens out there are wanting some type of an official report on this.
I think Chief Lucas may be out there if he wants to address it. If not, I understand that they're working on it. And when
I mean, I know that's where the citizens are starting to get tired of it, you know, because we said they're working on it, and they said, well,
Yeah.
how long are they going to keep working on it? I mean, come on.
And when Detective Scalia and Brian came in, we were going to do that executive session to talk about it, and we didn't get to. But what they're going over is really about 12 inches thick to give a summary. Now, I know that everybody here has got those, the other timeline, but that we were going to take up in operations, and I think maybe Commissioner Wandale may want to speak about that. But I think maybe, you know, if we get the sheriff's name, because we don't want to get it confused with the timeline, you know, that we've got, that was going to take up in operations. So hopefully, Chief Lucas will have something together pretty soon. That's what he says, you know, he says he's moving as expeditiously as he can.
And the reason it wasn't taken up in executive session is because it doesn't qualify for executive session.
Right.
And the people, like Jerry said, and Chuck said, they want to know, and instead of us doing it in executive session. So I do know that they're doing a summary report. I've been told that by the leadership in the Sheriff's Department. And I don't know when that'll be finished, but I'm sure they'll expedite that and let us know as soon as it's done. Any other questions? Robert, do we get a vote on the Clinton Middle School resolution?
I don't think we voted on any of the resolution.
Yeah. Is it on the consent? Okay.
Okay.
That's all I have. Unless you have any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
EMS audit report. Chief, you want to speak?
TV time.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, I thought maybe you had heard out in the hallway.
No, I had.
They were asking about when you was going to be able to deliver a summary on the breach.
Investigator Schooley is working on that now. I think he's got 20 some odd pages done. Not exactly sure about that number, but I think so. So hopefully in maybe by next week, I hope. Okay. So he's trying to summarize the large print version of War and Peace. So it's going to take a while. So, but I'll let you know if you want me to call you, Mr. Chairman. I'll let you know when it's done. So.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. Myron?
I think probably all of you had the same reaction to the EMS audit report as the EMS audit committee did. It's pretty overwhelming when you first see it. But I think, at least in my case and probably yours, a lot of what was in there isn't totally surprising. I think we heard some of this. We just haven't had, a comprehensive way to look at it like this audit presents and a plan to move forward. So I think the recommendation in the audit report, and let me just read it. I think he mentioned it when he did his presentation, but I think the bottom line recommendation in there in the executive summary, the very last sentence, I think really captures the essence of where the committee suggests the committee go with this. And it says, an overarching recommendation is that the mayor and EMS director develop an intermediate and long-range strategic plan that can be brought to the county commission for review, approval, and funding. And I think that really, like I said, I think it hits the nail on the head. I think it really, I think the discussion we had at the EMS committee, and there's some commissioners here that were on the committee, I don't think a committee of 16 people can go through all that and make the decisions. You need somebody that's going to take the lead in that. And I think Commissioner Warfield made an analogy, and I think it's a good one. It's kind of like when we took on the Blockhouse Valley landfill, some of you that were around then, the jail project where it had been around for a while. We just didn't have a plan being brought to us as commission to take it on and to make some decisions on. So that, I think in discussion, I think the intent would be that plan would bring in, as was mentioned earlier in the discussion, the public involvement of stakeholders, the nursing homes, to get that input and get some, maybe not total agreement, but some consensus to bring a plan forward that shows how we're going to fund it over a period of years, where that money's going to come from, so that you have an overall plan before you start having to band-aid it like we may have in the past. So I think that was the feeling of the committee and some of the discussion we had. So the recommendation from the committee is basically the same as what came in the audit report, but the motion was made by Shane Vowell, seconded by Teresa Scott, to recommend to County Commission that the county mayor and EMS director develop an intermediate and long-range strategic plans and funding recommendations to present for approval by County Commission. And so I'd ask you to consider just taking that as the next step. I think we did talk when they refer to immediate and long range, there may be some immediate things you may be able to take, like buy some of the ambulances, some of the short-term critical needs before you actually get to the complete plan. But I think I think the thinking is that before you want to take on the whole plan, you need, or take on the whole funding arrangement, you need some kind of plan to move forward with. So anyway, that's that's the report from the committee. Like I said earlier, we accepted their report. And rather than us try to, as a committee or you, with the suggestion to get into the details of this, the recommendation is to ask that the mayor and the ambulance director develop this plan. So,
We approve recommendation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Are we going to abandon the committee?
It's up to you, but I think the committee saw themselves as finishing the task they were assigned with. So if going down the road and developing this plan, there may be some of them that you or the mayor or others want involved in that process. So they may be involved, but I think the committee, as it was structured, really completed what they were asked to do.
Commissioner McCamey?
I'd like to see a little more involvement from our EMS Advisory Committee, Dr. Sexton and our medical director and people like that. I think Chief Curley's on that. But I'd like to see them a little more involved with developing the plan, and you know, that'll give the mayor and the EMS director some backing coming from that committee. It's a good committee. We've got some real good people on it, and I just feel like that, you know, they're not being utilized.
If I could, I think my recommendation of that is you still need to have one person that's the lead. I don't think assigning it to another committee is the best way to do it. I think it's assign one person to put the plan together, and they in turn can get input from those people as well as the
Right, that's
public
what I was
and
saying.
others. So I
I
think,
mean, we passed the motion to have the mayor and
yeah.
EMS director to develop a plan, but I'd like to see them work with our EMS Advisory Committee. I think Commissioner Alderson's on that committee also, so.
Yeah, just to Commissioner McCamey's point, Nathan and I, after the last EMS Audit Advisory meeting, we've already discussed having a working group, and as you heard Diane tonight, and Skip Kirkwood and Anthony Mingy say, it is important to get the public as well. And so I think we need a couple of folks from the community, as well as some of the folks that you've mentioned. Jody, who Dr. Sexton brought to us, that's the billing expert. Nathan is already, I think you've already talked to her, haven't you? Or, yes. So I think we are. I think that's when it works best. It's like with the Glen Alpine project, when you put people around the table, I think a working group will help with a long-term plan, and then it'll be incumbent upon Nathan and I to immediately come with something short-term, so.
Commissioner Denenberg?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that the point that Commissioner Fritz made earlier and suggestion of county-wide town hall type meetings where we can have the citizens come before us rather than having them come here as a mass group and let us know what they think, what do they want, and how much they think they're willing to pay for the services that are so desperately needed. And I think that this is something that really needs to be implemented very soon. So we'll have a real grasp on the kind of monies that we're going to need to find.
Commissioner
Thank you,
McCamey?
Chairman.
Where do we stand on the budget for this, the proposed budget for this coming year, Nathan?
I think it'll be in the Budget Committee report. The proposed budget was rejected, and the guidance I've received is at the end of this month, they did give me an extension. It's usually 10 days. They gave me till the end of the month to submit a budget, and the guidance for next year's budget is to really come up with 3 budget options. 1, a balanced budget and what we would need to cut to make that happen. 2, a budget with 1.5 pennies out of current tax money. I think Natalie would have to explain that a little bit better than I would, which would be about $240,000 to add on to what we could make ourselves and what we would still have to cut. And then if we were given an additional $800,000 for one-time capital outlay purchase, what that would do for us. So that's the guidance I have for at the end of this month is a balanced budget and what we would have to cut to make that happen. And if we were given an additional $240, what we would still have to cut to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this subject? Commissioner Denberg.
Thank you. Just one other point. I really think that this is probably the largest priority this county has right now, is getting the EMS straightened out financially, getting the equipment that they need, the ambulances that they need. And in my estimation, this is the main priority that we have at this time, above just about everything else. Thank you.
Agree. Commissioner Creasy.
Yeah, and if I may, just real quickly, because I think I'm in order. The auditor mentioned that we had some problems with the CAD systems in 911. Did I understand that we had a difficulty there with the ambulance service in the 911 system?
Well, the CAD system that we currently have up in dispatch was a homegrown system that was developed by Nathan Brown back in the early 2000s. And we've just kind of been using that. Really, it's kind of like an online filing system. So it doesn't track vehicle locations. It doesn't communicate to the ambulances. It doesn't communicate to our patient care reporting documentation. So it's something that's way behind the times of what is out there and has been out there for quite some time as a CAD system. There's a lot of opportunities there. We're having discussions at the E911 level about going ahead and trying to get one CAD system that would be for all disciplines up in the Sheriff's Department. Because right now they've got one for Sheriff's Department, then they got a separate CAD that does EMS and fire. And even for like the volunteer fire departments, even though it doesn't offer much, they don't have access to that CAD. And even for us, we have some limited access to the CAD. So it doesn't do what we should be doing. So I know E911 is having current discussions on changing that, though.
Well, as I remember when I was serving with you on the 911, we were working to have that system to work like that.
Yeah, I've kind of been working on it since about 2010. Funding's been the issue. So we've been trying, we tried grants several times. I know when we had some of the extra money left over for the jail, that was something we presented to County Commission, and we've tried through E911 now. So we're hopefully getting close.
The 911 board is working on that.
Yes, they've shown interest in trying to send that out for a bid, but we just haven't developed the RFP and sent it out to bid.
So it's not quite as drastic as I interpreted what he was saying, apparently.
E911 board's been talking about it for about a year and a half now.
Okay.
So I can't say that we're necessarily any step closer, but there is discussion about actually sending an RFP out. That was back in, I think, January, and the RFP still hasn't been sent out. So hopefully we can get some traction and get that improved.
Commissioner Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't know the conversation was going to go this way, or I'd ask Chief Lucas to stay. He had some concerns about the report as it relates to the CAD system. He documented those. Hopefully everyone got a copy of that, and I think he expressed some of his concerns that he had with that CAD system. Much too technical for me to try to dive into it, but Chief Lucas also may be a source that you all may want to consider when you have the questions about the technical part of the CAD system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other discussion? One thing, Commissioner Val and myself was talking about having some meetings, some committee meetings or town hall meetings earlier. But what we have to do, Commissioner Bates and myself used to do that. But when you got two commissioners that's going to meet and do that, you have to give public notice. So just be aware of that. So we're working on some dates now, and we're probably going to do a day and an evening both.
And if you guys are having those meetings and you want me to attend, just let me know. I'll be happy to attend those.
Any other discussion?
I didn't know. Well, actually, Jay and I talked about that earlier. We don't have a contract to present to you. I'm not comfortable with the language that's in that contract. Jay and I have been corresponding about that today. Some of the language, some of the disagreements between us and Methodist would leave us really not collecting anything on some transports, and I'm just not comfortable with the wording on that. So Jay and I have been communicating back and forth on emails today, and we're going to reach out to some people that have specific Medicare rules, regulations, laws, understandings that are way above my head. So we're trying to get the right wording on that to make sure that it's the right contract for us.
Anything else to Nathan? Next, we have Conservation Board by Commissioner Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't, go ahead.
Are we on the budgets?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, that's coming up next.
Straight through us, like, what's going on?
I'm always last.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
It's okay.
Can we go on?
Yeah.
Luck of the draw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something we do not have to vote on, but I just wanted to bring you before commission and also to the public too. For the last year and a half, 2 years, I guess, we've done a whole lot of work on Anderson County Park, a tremendous amount. There's some things that Jay didn't talk about that's going to happen up there too. That's worked out very, very good. TWRA has really bending over backwards to help us with this. One thing that we're doing, and I just emailed it to you, and if I didn't get it to you, I don't think it's in the agenda, is a lease agreement that we're doing with the residents at Anderson County Park. We've done a lot of renovations up there. We're going to go with, as it stands now, Airbnb, I think that's how it's pronounced, on the rental. It's a 2-night stay minimum. We're going to start leasing it out to the public, $275 a night for, I think it's 8 people can stay in it. We've done a whole lot of renovations up there. And security deposit of $275, cleaning fee of $150. That's pretty comparable with the industry as far as areas that's around there. All of this money will go back into the park so we can do more renovations up there. So you're gonna be the first one to rent, right? But it is. It's really nice, and I want to thank Toby Brummett and his staff for their hard work. And my wife came up and had some redecorating ideas for us too. Thank God for the women, because we sure can't do it on our own. But the place looks really great. Y'all know where the residence is, but it's going to be a good thing. We got a lot of interest that I've heard from people have been emailing me saying, "Hey, when's it going to be open up for us to lease it out?" So it'll be a good family atmosphere. Just got to tell you this: Anderson County Park has never run so smooth since I know it. I mean, the things have gone so well. I go by and just go by up there and talk to the residents or the people that rent up there. And everybody's happy. Everybody gets along. We didn't have that a few years ago, and things went well. So, but just wanted to, I emailed that final agreement. Jay has looked over it, and we changed some things, but I think it's all finalized now. So we'll start working with Airbnb and get that leased out. So
are you asking that to be approved?
it doesn't have to be, sure.
Well, we have a motion and second.
We had a motion anyway, so let's do it.
Okay. We have a motion and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Warfield, I want to thank you and your staff and the board. You've done a tremendous job, and I think leadership is one of the reasons that we're seeing results, so I thank you for that. Did the park already open up? Is the season open already, or?
Yeah, there's been people camping on it already.
All right.
I think they're probably re-guessing, rethinking that today, but.
And I also want to thank, I know you do this as well, but I want to thank Stephanie Wells and the tourism.
Oh, yes.
I know she goes above and beyond, and
Very much
she
so.
helps with maps and all kinds of things, and she helps promote the park, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Commissioner Emmer.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Warfield, I was out Saturday, and a gentleman in the Claxton area had made a comment about needing something at the Claxton Park where the Claxton Community Center is, and I told him I would mention it to you and the two commissioners that represent that area. He said that they were interested in having a light at the entrance. They're not trying to light up the park. They're not trying to light up the parking lot. It's just that it's a safety hazard for them when they're going to the community center at night if they're having a function out there. And apparently they've had a hard time trying to get a light. So I don't know the
I think it's a
details about.
TVA thing.
And he mentioned something about TVA, and I didn't know if that was something Jay and you and the commissioners out there in that area could do. I just told him I would mention it to you, so, and I'll turn it over to you to see what you
Thank
could do
sir.
about that.
Yeah, I'll get with Jay, and he probably knows more people than probably what we do. on
And I'm
that,
sure the
but
commissioners, it was Mr. Chandler is who I spoke with, and maybe y'all could reach out to him and see if there's anything. Not a big illumination of anything, just the entrance so they can see to pull in and pull out.
It is pretty dark up there,
So-
I'll admit, yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you,
Follow up on
Commissioner.
Commissioner Emmert's request and information. I think it'd probably be appropriate to have a letter from this body or the Conservation Board in support of a light, then put that to TVA. I think, obviously, it's going to be up to TVA since that's TVA property, and they'll have to make that decision if they put a light in there or not.
I think it'd be good if it come from this board.
I make a motion that we have the, well, okay, so you want it to be this board, not the
Yes, sir.
Conservation? Okay, I make a motion that the County Commission draft a resolution in support of a light at the entrance of the Claxton Community Park / Optimist Club ball fields. I so move.
Second.
I have motion second. Any discussion on the motion for the resolution? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Budget Committee report.
Good evening. So I got notification just today that Anderson County received its Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for another fiscal year. We've had this certification since 2008. And then also earlier this month, we also received the award for Outstanding Achievement in the popular annual financial reporting, and we've had that certification since 2012. So we're continuing both of those certification traditions. So moving on to the cash and fund balance report, and this is as of March, so we're 3/4 through this fiscal year. The unassigned fund balance is $3.8 million. I will note that it's below the $4 million threshold, which requires 2/3 vote on budget amendments drawing down that balance. Restricted fund balance is $1.2 million. Committed fund balance is $2.1 million. The assigned fund balance is $307,000, and the non-spendable fund balance is a little over $1 million, bringing us to a total fund balance reserves of $8.6 million. The cash fund balance as of February 28th is continuing the recent trend of being the highest cash balance over the last 45 months, and it is $12.8 million. Again, that's as of March. And then I don't have any other comments on the other funds. Moving to the graphs. The next one, Annette. So again, as last month, these financial indicators are favorable as of the end of the third quarter. In looking at the cash trends, cash continues to be favorable compared to past fiscal years. I would point out that this fiscal year, we added pennies to the general fund. That's some of what's contributing to the cash fund balance being so much higher than in past years. If you recall, 2 years ago, we moved 2.8 pennies into the 177 Educational Capital Projects Fund to fund the one-to-one technology. This is the second year of that funding, and that 2.8 cents moved back to the general fund. So that's some of what is helping to contribute to the very favorable cash trends as of March compared to previous years.
What would we be, Natalie, if we didn't have that coming in?
I would have to do the math on that, but if you figure a penny is $160,000, then over 2.5, that's $400,000. It would definitely bring that green bar down. I think it would still be above where past years have been. And then moving on to the general fund actuals year-to-date as of March, I added trend lines, so it might be a little easier to compare past fiscal years compared to where we are currently. And you can see, again, this is as of the end of March, we're still operating in a surplus year-to-date, which again is a favorable indicator. It's also up slightly compared to recent fiscal years as well. So again, that's another favorable indicator. And then finally, moving to the general fund unassigned fund balance trends, our current unassigned fund balance is approximately $70,000 above where we finished last fiscal year. So it is also around 2 months of operating expenses, but stable nonetheless. So if there aren't any questions on that, I'd like to move on to the budget amendments, and then we can bring up the minutes from the budget committee. So, summary of budget amendments. Submitting Group 2 appropriations school for commission's approval individually or as a group.
Second.
Have a motion second as approval as a group. Go to the board. We got any
Board vote.
discussion on this? Board vote, please. Motion passes unanimous.
Group 3 is one transfer on behalf of the schools. It affects a major line item, so it requires board vote, please.
Got any discussion? Go to the board and vote.
Second.
Motion passes.
Group 4, we've already taken action on number 30, so submitting the remainder of Group 4 appropriations non-school for commission's approval individually or as a group.
Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. Item 35, can you elaborate on that, please?
Okay, so items 32 through 38 are operating transfers coming from the other funds. If you'll recall, over the past several months, I've been coming before you. It started with the general fund, asking for each time it's been $80,000 worth of funding coming from the general fund to go to Fund 263 to alleviate the cash flow issues. We've had a very unusual year in that we've had extremely high claims compared to past years. This fund is also one of those funds that doesn't have sufficient reserves in it. So last month was the third round of $80,000 that came from the general fund. We've got to allocate those operating transfers across all of the funds because the general fund cannot be the only fund making the self-insurance fund whole, meaning it has to come from all of those that are benefiting from the self-insurance fund.
Okay.
So this is continuing, this last, what I'm hoping will be the last round for this fiscal year. Again, we won't know until we close this fiscal year, but it's making it equitable across the funds, and this completes that third batch, so to speak.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to approve as a group. Any other discussion? Go to the board and vote. Motion passes.
Submitting Group 5 transfers, non-school, these all affect major line items or payroll. Submitting for commission's approval individually or as a group.
Move to approve as a group.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Wandale.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a couple of questions on item 17 and item 26. I just want to discuss it. I'm not debating. I just wanted to talk about those. So if we can remove those for discussion, item 17 and 26, I'd appreciate that. I know you have a motion on the floor, though.
I don't see a problem in doing that.
Go ahead and talk.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Item 17, page 40. My question is, it was a request by the Anderson County Budget Committee, written request from Mr. Lloyd, Buildings and Grounds, for the transfer of $12,500. The justification to correct BG-080040 for mold inspection and remediation for 205 East Main Street Senior Center, expenses charged to 51730, not 51800. This is to cover them. My question is, am I to understand that the remediation is completed at 205 Main, reading this motion?
This is only the payment of those services to move it into a code that is more appropriate for covering those services. Commission previously approved the appropriation for $12,500. I would have to defer to the mayor with respect to where we are on the remediation.
I just want to get, Mr. Chairman, justification, make sure that, you know, one could read that as the remediation is complete. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Mayor?
No, sir, I think she's just correcting the codes, but no, the remediation is not complete. We met last, I can't remember, Natalie was there, I don't remember what. I don't remember what day it was, but I think I'll let you all know at operations that Natalie and Catherine and I were gonna be meeting with Roger the next day. And we did. Catherine has jumped all over that. She has put everything together in an Excel spreadsheet. She has, she's doing the roof issues in one particular silo, and then she has everything else in another spreadsheet. She and I talked today. She's going to get with Roger and actually do a checklist on what we want, just maybe an estimate on, and what Roger actually needs repaired. So that's where we are, and the remediation won't be done until we have some numbers from that.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification, Mr. Chairman. It just means that the funds have been allocated to do the remediation. So thank you for the clarification.
You had another question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 26 on page 44. Let me get to it here. Well, if I could find it here, it's bounced around on me. Well, there it is. Okay. My question is, this is a request from the solid waste to transfer $2,803.50. It was for the justification. Transfer is for title insurance and fees for the land purchase for moving of Glen Alpine Center for property on Highway 441, which was not included in the original budget amendment of $375,000 for the purchase. I guess my question again is, it says transfer is for title insurance and fees for land purchase. It seems as if we have some different information that was presented. Mayor, maybe you can clarify this, but at operations, and we'll talk about it when we get into operations, we were presented with some information that was a title opinion, I guess, and even Commissioner Denenberg can speak more to that. I'm not an attorney. I don't know much about titles other than, so I guess my question is, is this money going to be used for the title insurance, or is it just for the opinion?
It's for both, and that's included in the same document. I emailed that out to you all today. And what Jeff did when he reached out for the title insurance, Jeff and Vernon in the planning office, Jay can probably speak more to the law on how that works, but that is what came back. And so Jeff got that out of his funds and had to transfer that. And that's what went through Budget Committee before we could go forward with all of that.
Okay.
So I think the insurance part, if you look on that line item, was
taking it out of concrete and putting it in towards land.
yes. But if you look at the insurance costs, I think it said West Core, that document I sent you all from Phil Cry, that broke down the fees. So there's filing fees and some of those estimated costs. Some of that may not even be needed. I don't know. That's where the law director will come in when it comes time for closing. So, but the insurance cost is that fee on there, and then the opinion, I think, was $200.
Okay, so I haven't seen it, I mean, I've seen the email, but I haven't
Right.
read it. I was trying to get ready for this meeting today, but that came in today that you did provide us.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. I'll certainly look at it. I guess my question, Mr. Chairman, is are we proceeding with the purchase of this land, or at what point in this meeting do we plan to talk about that?
That's number 11, old business, and that's actually been requested by Commissioner Warfield, the
Okay,
current
thank you.
timeline or
Thank you.
status.
Thank you for the explanation, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, we have a
Mayor to
motion.
vote.
We have a motion and a second to approve as a group. Any other discussion?
Motion to approve.
Let's go to the board and vote. Yeah.
I do too.
Motion passes.
Group 6, appropriations from the general fund unassigned fund balance, presenting for your approval individually or as a group.
Move approve as a group.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's go to the board and vote. Motion passes.
And I will add that that $90,000 insurance recovery money has already been received. Moving on to Group 7, and we probably ought to take these.
Natalie, I got a question.
Sure.
Would that go back and reflect, is that reflected in your graph that was 70,000 plus?
No, because it hasn't been approved yet.
Okay, so then
It'll
that
go in there
graph
at
will
the next
go even
month.
up. All right, thank you.
So Group 7, let's go over these individually. The first one is a budget amendment from the general fund for buildings and grounds that was forwarded on to commission from the budget committee without a recommendation. I don't know if there's any questions or.
What was the item before? I apologize. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, let me find it myself. If memory serves, it's Powell Clinch Utility District has incurred utility bills. Bear with me, yes.
Is that the one where we took possession of the senior center?
We took possession of 205 Main.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right, that's all right. And the name on the account is the previous owner. And utilities were incurred. I don't have any money appropriated for utilities to pay the bill. Powell Clinch Utility District has reached out to the finance office because they're wanting to get paid. My understanding is Michael Farley, because he was not the owner, doesn't feel that it's his responsibility, because as of after the first week of July, it was the county's obligation. Jay and I emailed about this because the concern is expending taxpayer funds for a private purpose. And I had sent a letter to Marvin Pruitt. I had a phone call conversation with him last week. I asked him to put something in writing, and he, I can go over what he said to me, but he basically feels that he didn't have an executed lease. He doesn't feel like it's his responsibility. I don't know if it's a miscommunication between some of the conversations that he may have had with Jay or others. But where I am is Powell Clinch Utility District is wanting their bill paid, and because we need to discuss how we're gonna handle that bill. There's nothing urgent about it right now. However, when we get to the point that we want natural gas coming into that next season, we need to resolve it in between now and then. So the current amount outstanding that includes the late fees and those charges, along with a $100 deposit, is the $1,394.38.
Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I'm reading the justification, I located it, and you gave a great explanation. Thank you, Natalie. We would now, with this motion, if we approve these funds, be taking possession of the utility bill for that, correct?
We would have the money appropriated so we could pay the outstanding charges and create an account in Anderson County government's name.
Okay. I guess I'm not going to confuse the issue. I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to say, Commissioner Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's an issue whether you can pay a private citizen's bill, so I'm going to yield to Jay on that. That was come up in Budget Committee. I don't know if there's a statute that you can use government dollars for private use, but I'll yield to Jay.
Thank you, Commissioner Meredith. Actually, it's a constitutional provision. We're going to have to get reimbursement. He used the gas. We didn't use the gas. It was on a separate meter just for the business he had there. Whether he refused to sign the lease doesn't matter. He was paying rent. I'm going to send him a nice letter, ask him to understand our position, and if he doesn't, I'll come back next month and ask you for permission to institute suit to recover that. We can't be stuck in that position. I hate it, but he used that gas to heat that building all through the winter, and we're getting stuck with a bill, and that's not right.
In addition, I'd also
So-
add that there's 3 months of rent that's also outstanding
Yeah,
along with that, so.
We've sent him a letter on that issue too, so
So the question is, Jay, is this motion in order?
I'm sorry, repeat.
I was under the impression this was just on us having a bill in the senior center. I didn't see the driving information there. I didn't realize it was a private individual. I withdraw my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll immediately speak with the gentleman tomorrow. He was always very reasonable to me in the phone conversations we had, but he did end up refusing to sign the lease after, I don't know, several weeks. But he does need to pay us for that, and we need to recover the money.
So should we take action?
We can pay it, but we're going to seek reimbursement. That's the way it's going to be.
Well, then,
Well, the seconder never seconded my withdrawal.
Where we at
so-
on that? Is it? I'm sorry, Natalie.
I withdraw my second.
Well, what he's saying is leave it on there.
Well,
Just leave it.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable. I didn't know it was an individual. I thought it was our dealings as a county, not an individual.
We
And I
just
understand
took
there's
possess-
questions on the lease and when it took possession, but I don't want to get in all that, and I don't want to spend any taxpayers' dollars on something that needs to be addressed by the law director, and I'm not gonna get into that. So no, I'll stand with the motion being withdrawn as I presented.
There was 2 meters, one on the senior center and one on the rental part out front. It's the rental part.
That's correct.
That's on, no one's in it. It doesn't affect us
Correct.
if they cut it off right now.
They've already cut it. They cut it off back in November, I believe.
So,
when he decided to move.
He moved out the end of March,
no, he moved out in March.
right? End of March.
Yeah, I saw him up there.
Commissioner McCamey?
I got to carry your bond.
I'm sorry, I'm not. Go ahead.
We got a bill, or we got a call from the senior center telling us that they were going to cut our
You
gas
spoke
off
with me about this.
because we hadn't paid the bill, and went back and, Cherie
She had paid the bill.
Cherie had where she had paid her bill every month. And that's when we found out that it was the driving school, and I told them, go ahead and let them cut it off, and they did.
Yes.
And then he decided to move. But I would make a motion that we go ahead and pay Powell Clinch,
Okay.
and then seek reimbursement
reimbursement.
from him, plus the 3 months' rent that he's stiffed us with.
Okay, at this point, do you want me to move forward with just a nice professional letter and see where that leaves us, and then next month we come back and I'll see where we're at?
No lawsuits.
Right,
No
Jerry, I'm
lawsuits.
all for it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Does everybody know what we're voting on?
Board vote, please.
Board vote?
Please.
Let the record reflect there's 4 no votes, but motion passes.
And then what I had in, as Section A, we need to approve it's my recommendation that we approve the minimum from the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System of 7.32% for next year's. And because it's an appropriation, if we could have a board vote, please.
Motion second, any discussion?
7.33 is what it is this current fiscal year, so it would be coming down just to 7.32 for next fiscal year.
Let's go to the board and vote. Motion passes.
Okay, so the two remaining items, I don't know which order you want to take them in. I've got the Budget Committee minutes from March 15th that was in the consent agenda that Commissioner Wandell has a question on, and then the Budget Committee minutes from March 29th. Kim and I are bringing to you the recommendation for the self-insurance fund. She has open enrollment later on this month, and I understand she emailed Commission over the weekend. Just to speak real quickly on the self-insurance fund, the Budget Committee unanimously approved these two options that are changing this fund for 263 for next fiscal year. It was at the recommendation of the Board of Trustees. Since open enrollment, again, will occur in May, we're bringing this to Commission now so we can all be of one mind in how we're going to proceed in going through open enrollment and the medical insurance for next fiscal year. So that was really under the minutes of 329. Do we want to talk about your question for the March 15th?
Go ahead, Commissioner Wandell.
Mr. Chairman, I told you at the beginning of the meeting, I apologize if I was wrong, so I apologize. The minutes, as Natalie said, were from March 15th on the consent agenda.
Correct.
And the minutes in our regular package is from March 29th, all related to the budget committee and such. So my question was, the reason I wanted to bring that from the consent agenda is it says that the General Debt Service Fund 151 to Capital Projects Fund 171, Finance Director Natalie Erb discussed the opportunity to move 10.63 pennies from the General Debt Service Fund to the Capital Projects Fund for 1 year, since the Debt Service Fund currently has approximately 24 months of principal and interest payments in reserves. The motion passed. My question is, the 171 fund, the capital projects, I guess the thought is to increase that fund for the projects we have coming up. Is there thought to use those funds for EMS or because we're talking 10.63, I guess the way I figure it's about $1,708,000.
That's correct. So,
wait, let me fix that. $1,700,800.
that's correct.
Okay.
So how the discussion has come about with the Budget Committee is for 1 year only to move this 10 cents and change from the General Fund 151, Debt Service Fund, over to the Capital Projects Fund. Since Commission approved the budget for this fiscal year, we've been having discussion around the capital outlay and capital project funding needs across the county. Many months ago, we were talking about the need for the fire truck, and the current resolution says 1 fire truck be funded per year, and we've been spreading that across 2 fiscal years. Last fiscal year, the sheriff got approval to buy $453,000 worth of sheriff's vehicles. We have not appropriated those funds for this fiscal year, but that need is very much there. Also, in putting in an IT department for those offices that don't have revenue or fees that can provide for their IT infrastructure, Brian put forward a capital plan asking for $20,000 for some of the capital investments for next fiscal year. Going across the county, just in the general fund, there's almost $200,000, I think maybe it's 141,000, so maybe it's closer to 150,000 of needs across the county that, again, using some of that $300,000 capital outlay money, we had to move that to the Daniel Arthur. So some of these other capital project needs keep getting pushed back. So it's only for 1 year, but it was my hope that we could see what 10 cents could get us in achieving our capital project needs, because that's, from my perspective, a very, very real need. In the last Budget Committee meeting, those decisions haven't been made yet with respect to how that $1.7 million would be spent. But in hearing EMS's budget, I propose that we use potentially up to $800,000 of that money to help stop the bleeding. That may be a bad choice of words, but to help put some of the funding towards the ambulances, but recognizing that that priority, along with the sheriff's vehicles and the fire equipment, those are all very high priority and competing priorities. They still need funding, and that's that funding issue. So let me pause there. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Chairman, you answered it very well, and I just want to say thank you for being fiscally responsible. I think this is a great decision, and I can't thank you enough. I think the folks at home, if I could just paraphrase, you're taking funds that are showing in excess, which you just talked about earlier. You're going to place them into a capital projects fund so we can address many issues that we have, including the EMS. It's not going to fix all of EMS, and of course the mayor and Mr. Sweet will come to us with a plan that they have. But I really appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate what you're doing, Natalie, and thank the Finance Committee for what you're doing. Thank you.
Excellent job. Excellent.
And I'll also add too that this keeps the general debt service fund still at a healthy reserve.
Correct.
Commissioner Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank Natalie and my fellow Budget Committee members. And Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but with these recommendations that Natalie has presented to budget, not only are we going to be able to fix some of the problems that we're facing with EMS and the Sheriff's Department cars and the fire engines, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, we're going to be able to do it most likely without a tax increase needed.
So moving this 10 pennies over to the capital projects fund will help alleviate, from my perspective, a lot of the immediate capital projects needs. It's not going to be a once, and I mean, this dime for 1 year is not going to fix it beyond 1 year. I will say, based on the current projections for next year's budget, the general fund budget is budgeted to be at a deficit. I keep wanting to balance our budget without using reserves. You hear me talking about, I don't think our reserves are healthy for the general fund, and I am concerned that if we keep relying on the general fund reserves to bail self-insurance fund out, or any unforeseen events, lawsuits, I mean, you name it, things can happen, that we could be in a real pickle. So that's where we are for this year. And I do think, as I messaged when we approved the budget for this fiscal year, I think we are trending towards the need for a tax increase unless we can identify how we're going to cut spending somewhere else.
Not the answer I exactly wanted, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I agree, Commissioner Val. That was one of the questions on the radio program today. So, and I said Natalie has the answer. So,
Sorry, that's not the answer you wanted to hear. So we need to approve the minutes to go in the commission minutes, and then
have a motion second. Any discussion, Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In those minutes, you talked earlier, after this discussion, about the insurance fund and
Right.
how we're making changes and the HR, Kim, and basically what is that in the minutes?
yeah, I put the budget should have been in there as well, and I'm also asking for an additional action on that to approve the budget for Fund 263 going into next fiscal
So
year.
do you need a separate motion, or
Please.
is it going to be done in this motion with the minutes?
I'd like a separate motion, please.
Okay, we'll make that motion after this motion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Second motion?
A board vote, please,
Oh,
for
you want a
the
board
approving
vote?
the budget for next
Okay.
fiscal year for Fund 263, please.
Now, is this the self-insurance one?
Yes.
Okay, I think we should talk, what's that? Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Need to clear
Motion,
the
a
board
second,
then.
and board vote, since it's an appropriation.
I'll second it, just like to have a little discussion.
Sure.
Nothing to debate, just wanted to point out. Is that all right, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Again, this is another cost-saving measure being put forward by the HR director and the finance committee. And basically, we've been having, as you said, to tap into funds throughout the year because our self-insurance fund for insurance for all the employees hasn't been to the level that it needs to be. So what's happened is you've met, the HR committee's met, insurance committee, and I'm using the wrong words.
Board of Trustees?
Board of Trustees, thank you. And the recommendation is before us, which is going to increase the cost to the folks that take the insurance, but we still have a great plan. And am I summarizing correctly?
It's moving to a
Come on up and please, I think it's important.
It's moving to a two-tier plan,
Right.
where the gold plan is going to essentially cost the employee more, where the silver plan is taking more of the benefits off the table, but keeping the money out of pocket for the employee the same,
Gotcha.
generally.
Kim, do you want to say something? I mean,
She answered it. That's correct.
how much money will this save us?
It's really changing the whole structure of the fund. That's right.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the plan as presented for the 263 fund. I so move.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? We need to go to the board and vote. Motion passes. Do you have all the approvals that you need?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Operations Committee report. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Fritz.
This is for Natalie here. I could wait till May, but it'd be too late, and teachers be getting ready to get out anyway. But I've talked to Dr. Parrott, and he's on board with it, and totally is agreeable to it. But I've got $1,000 in my waste management fund, and I would like to ask that I donate $1,000 of that money to the and give it to the principal at Claxton Elementary School to be used for the teachers there at Claxton for supplies and things of that nature, things that they might need for. And Dr. Parrott said he'd help draft a letter, however it needs to be done, so that money could be used then for the.
It's got to be for field trips.
Shall be for field trips, can't be for supplies, according to. It's got to be used for the students, and it's, in theory, it's supposed to be for travel, but it has to be used on the kids and not supplies for teachers. I would love to be able to say, yes, I agree 1,000% with you, but that's what I've read anyway.
Did we talk about it before? Because I tried to do it for the Lake City Middle School for the air conditioning.
The fund says that it has to be used for school purposes that are not in the school budget. That's not budgeted by the school department. Any school purpose that's not included in the Board of Education approved budget.
You want to take a vote on it contingent upon my approval in the next couple of days to provide it?
Yes.
That's a good idea. Thank you, Jay.
Commissioner Wendell?
I didn't want to cut in front of
Go
Commissioner
ahead.
Fritz. I too have some funds left, but Commissioner Fritz, perhaps we can get with the principal at the school and see what things they have in front of them and what they'd like to have. We certainly have the funds to allocate, and
At least get it approved, and that way,
Make a motion to approve contingent on law director. Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
thank you, Commissioner Roberts.
Operations Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Operations Committee met on April 9th. We had a motion by Mayor Frank, upon motion by Commissioner Isabel, seconded by Commissioner Scott, to add to the agenda the letter of support for Briceville Volunteer Fire Department to seek additional assistance from the USDA to help secure funds for the purchase of turnout gear, air packs, small equipment. Motion amended to forward to full commission for approval. I so move.
Have a motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item on the agenda from Mayor Frank was the motion by Commissioner McCamey and seconded by Commissioner Isabel to forward the Glen Alpine Convenience Center land purchase to full commission for approval. Motion passed. I think we probably have to have some discussion on that now.
Be covered under number 11 in the budget.
Yes, sir. So we won't take any action on that at this time under the minutes of the Operation Committee. I think he says it's on further down.
Yeah, next item.
Thank you. New business was Commissioner Isabel made a motion to follow up on a proclamation for Harry Patton to be presented to the April County Commission, but we've decided to put that off for some time in May. And
May 21st meeting.
Commissioner Creasy brought that to our attention, and we appreciate it, Mr. Creasy, and certainly condolences to the Patton family. I'll make it a motion just to make it official.
Please.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, that completes my report for the Operations Committee.
Okay, thank you. Old business, Commissioner Warfield.
There's been some issues come up with the purchase of the land on Norris Freeway for the new convenience center, not necessarily Glen Alpine Convenience Center, but the new convenience center, the entrance, as far as getting approval from TVA. Where did Jay go? Oh, I didn't say, sorry. Jake, you said T-Dot, sorry, my bad. Jay, can you? Can you bring us up to date on that? Because I'm not comfortable, and I don't think anybody else is comfortable closing if we don't have.
I sent you an email.
Yeah.
Early this afternoon.
But there's been a lot of people have been asking me about it, and I think we need to get it out there on TV.
Let's wait until we can get the access permit in hand. We don't have that. The one we had is expired. Chuck is willing to work with us. He's had his engineers out there. You saw the correspondence that I had with TDOT Thursday and Friday of last week. We did get the title commitment letter late this afternoon. I'll share that with you in the morning from Mr. Cry. Then hopefully everything will be in good shape for us to get approval to close this deal at the May County Commission meeting. I'll bring it back to you. At that time, what I'd like to see, and if you read my email, is I want to see some kind of written assurance from TDOT that we will have access or know exactly what we need to do to get access. I went ahead and sent them a copy of our insurance policy or certificate of insurance to start this ball rolling. They promised to get me the application today. I didn't get it. They might have confused that with your engineer speaking with them, but we'll get started on the application process. That's not been initiated yet, but hopefully we'll move quick and we'll find out exactly where we need to be. The only thing that I want you to realize from the email I sent you from Chuck this afternoon, they're still talking about, for the first time, requiring us to have a turn lane in there. Before, that was just a recommendation. It looks more and more like they may be requiring it. That's going to change the financial picture of this project, and I want you to be aware of that. And Chuck, if there's any way you can speak to them about, is that an option for us and not a requirement, I think that's the route to proceed, because no one expected a financial outlay to add those turn lanes in at this point. But again, the contract requires us to close that deal on May 31st. We're ready to go. We could close the deal if we had all the written assurances by the end of the week. But I do want you to know the current owners are easy to deal with. I do believe if we needed a short extension, they'd be willing to give that to us. I don't see anything other than just getting the written assurance, the permit in hand from TDOT that we do have access to that site. Chuck, can you think of anything that is concerning to you? I know there's a 100-year flood plan map that was listed by Mr. Cry, but it's way out of there where we want to put it. The other issue on the title opinion showed the TVA transmission line easements. That doesn't matter if we're not underneath those. So can you think of anything else that concerns you? The access is our issue. Of course, there was also the indication of the current year taxes, but we knew that would be there. That's on all issues of land purchase. But right now, I'll keep you abreast of what I know on a daily basis. When I get information, I'll immediately share it with you and the mayor, and we'll keep pushing forward. And hopefully, our goal is to close this thing out in May. We'll turn it over to the construction guys and start from there and get this center opened as quickly as possible. And we'll put this issue to bed like we talked about earlier. This is an issue that was been lingering since '84, and I can't wait for it to be over, certainly for the people of District 3.
Jay,
Any questions about that?
If I misunderstood, please correct me. In the email that I got from you, I thought that one of the items dealt with the plan for the site, that TDOT or TVA wanted our current plans.
We got that. Chuck sent that to me. TDOT.
It's a schematic design.
You should have an email.
Not necessarily, and again, I may have misunderstood it,
Okay.
but I thought it was plans for, not to turn in, but plans for the facility.
You got that. We've got, actually, it's, Mayor, you're going with the old site plan and the one you sent me?
I'd have to see. I
Yeah.
don't remember which one.
You've got an email with it. It actually is identified as site plan, Michael Brady site plan.
Well, but that's for.
That shows
was-
both. Shows the center, the access to the center. Now, it's not the breakdown of exactly, it's the footprint of the center. I think what you're wanting to see is exactly how that center is laid out.
Well, I thought that's what the email was saying, that they wanted to see the exact, how we were gonna lay that out. And that's not been determined. Now, what we
That's more
have.
of a TDEC issue there.
Okay.
The TDOT is looking for the overall
Yes.
footprint of the facility to see the ingress, egress, how it's going to affect traffic out there. And the mayor, you've got a plan you like, don't you, that Jeff's working with?
We've just, our last meeting, we were discussing with Michael Brady, but that's a site plan that would
Yeah.
be TDOT specifications.
We've got one drawn up that was the one that, you may have seen it before, that was at the end of First Quality Drive. We've got that one already in the can, but as far as the actual layout of that new site, I haven't seen it, and I'm going to defer to Jeff, who does a tremendous job, and he'll be working, I guess, with Michael Brady on that.
Was that something that Commissioner McCamey, that you can answer, that has Jeff done anything on the actual site plan? It's not the turn-in, but the.
I think he's got something there that may
The,
trump everything, actually.
The site plan that we talked about was taking the Glen Alpine expansion and placing it up on the hill there at the far end, the north city limit end of that property. When TDOT was out there, their concern was if you turn in and right there it is, that you'd have some problems with that. But we've got between 300 and 400 feet of roadway to stack vehicles on, so that's not going to be an issue.
Right.
And if you got the letter or the email from Mr. Varner, that was his concern because of the high traffic volume of people waiting to turn in. But we will not have that problem up there. They will be able to, access this 300, 400 feet, so we can stack many, many vehicles in there. And then a complete circle that they can turn around and come back out.
But we've not developed a new, for the actual, where people drop their waste off. We do not have a plan for that new facility.
No, we're expanding basically what I think basically what we agreed on was use the footprint of what we were going to expand at Glen Alpine to make it work at the present site, but spread it out more so that we didn't have to have a long, we've got this turn lane, so we can, once we get it up there on the hill, there's no way that we're not going to be able to stack all the vehicles. But using that plan that we had before, but just rearranging it on that plot of land up there.
I really wasn't concerned about the actual, we've got plenty of room as far as for vehicles coming in and even stacking up. I've been adamant about this. The plans that was for the renovation of the current Glen Alpine Convenience Center, just being adamant on it, is way too small for building a new one up there. It needs to be longer, it needs to be wider.
Yeah.
Okay,
and we
well,
can
I
do
just-
that, but we had everything compact on this other one because we had.
Oh, I know.
We were only 80
I know.
feet wide and 220 feet long, you know. So up there, we can make it 100 by 100 and still, you know, have plenty of room up there, or make it 200 by 200. We've got 17 acres, so.
I just was concerned about the email that and again, I apologize, I misunderstood. I thought that. I thought, yeah, here lately. I just thought that they wanted a site plan, not for the turn-in, not for the lanes. I thought they wanted a site plan for that, okay.
That'll be more along the TDEC has to permit this too.
Right, yes, sir.
A lot of acronyms floating around, but, and what Robert is talking about is exactly our argument. Hey, we've got a lot of room here. Chances of traffic stacking up all the way back to North Freeway is
Slim,
very slim.
very slim.
So we're hoping we don't have to build that turn lane, but if we do, I'll let you know.
So the only thing really that we've got right now is just get approval for them and we can close.
Yes, sir.
Jay, can we get an actual, can we submit a permit for property we don't own? Can I go get a permit from TDOT to enter your property without?
No, that's not what it'll be. They will give us a permit, under the pretense that we are owning that property in the future. But the whole issue is, I don't think anybody wants to write that check if we don't have a firm commitment, written assurances, preferably in the form of the access permit, that we're gonna be able to enter that property from Norris Freeway.
Right.
And that's where we're at. That's what I want to assure. I don't see any problems. I really don't. We've dealt with Nathan Vader, Amanda Snowden, that group at TDOT and Strawberry Plains for years. They've worked well with us. I'm sure they'll continue to work with us.
And
Thank you, Jay.
the other issue on the title insurance, we can't actually purchase that until we purchase the property, right? That's part of the closing?
Yeah, part and parcel.
Okay.
But the commitment letter, which I just told you about, means everything. They're saying they're gonna issue title
Right.
insurance. You just gotta be aware of the items that are listed there in Schedule B, which are the overhead easements, the access issue, the back taxes, the things that we just talked about.
Thank you.
And the floodplain. Those are, I think, were the four main issues, but we've known about that, the overhead easements, since we started dealing with that in floodplain. Any other questions?
Commissioner Denenberg?
We got Chuck here also, if you have any questions for him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When could I expect to see a copy of the commitment?
I'll send it to you tonight. I just got it while we're in here.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Sure. I'll drop, when we adjourn here, I'll step back over to the office and send everybody a copy of the commitment letter. Also want to send tomorrow morning, you're not interested in reading. How about tomorrow morning? Also, I've got the overlay of a 100-year floodplain, so you can see where the site's going to be located versus what that floodplain looks like.
Well, the other thing too, I did call Mr. Kry's office this morning, because in reviewing the legal description, which I went almost blind doing, I did find some discrepancies, and I think it's basically just maybe typographical errors or where portions were left out that need to be included. And there was a difference between the calls on an older survey and the newer one, so I just want to get that cleared up as well.
Right. We'll get it cleared up, but I don't see any problem right now. I really don't. Other than, we just want to see the written assurances in hand. Any other questions that I can answer on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Next, we got new business. Commissioner Vaught.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bear with me just a second. I'd like to read an invitation from the Coal Creek Miners Museum. Everyone here, everyone at home is invited to the Coal Miners Reunion sponsored by the Coal Creek Miners Museum. Will be held on April the 28th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Clinch River Baptist Church. The museum is sponsoring the event to honor the miners that lived and worked in the mines in Anderson, Campbell, Scott, and Morgan counties. There will be a spaghetti dinner, live music, live auction, door prizes, t-shirts for sale, and script vendors will be on hand to sell and trade script. Remember my papa telling me stories about that. At 6 p.m., there'll be a program to honor the hard-working men and women who mine coal. Tickets are $5 per person, can be purchased at the Coal Creek Miners Museum Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also purchase them online at coalcreekminersmuseum.com. coalcreekminersmuseum.com, or you can purchase them at the door the night of the event. In addition, the Miners Museum will be hosting guided tours of the historical sites in Coal Creek, including stops at Militia Hill, where the militia was stationed during the Coal Creek War, Briceville Community Church, and Leach Cemetery, where Freightable Miners Circle is located. The tours are free, but you will need to make a reservation for the tour by calling 865-340-3269. 340-3269. Also, historians will be on hand at the Coal Creek Miners Museum from 10 a.m. to 4 to welcome visitors and talk about the historical events that made coal mining in Coal Creek so unique. And a portion of the proceeds from the event will go to fund the remodel of the second floor and the installation of an elevator to access the second floor of the Coal Creek Miners building. And would like to ask everyone to please attend that, a very worthy cause. I want to thank Chairman Isabel and all the members of that board for all the hard work that they do in our district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Alderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just need to sort of put you guys on notice. Since you decided to send it to nominations, we've got two situations where a member of the county legislative body as selected by their membership. So if you want to serve on the ethics committee, you might let Annette know your name. But we also have the legislative body appointment. So we'll be advertising that for nominating committee meetings since you want that to do. So it just sort of help if somebody's real interested to give Annette your name, and then we can go from there as far as from this body. And then we'll open it up and advertise it for the paper for our appointment as to whoever may sign up for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner McCamey.
Mr. Chairman, one time there was a proposal from this commission, and I don't know whatever happened to it, but it was to come up with students from, one from Anderson County High School, one from Clinton High School, and one from Oak Ridge High School, to become ex officio members of the county commission. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to refer that to maybe the operations committee and get that moving, because it, you know, like, the school board does it. They've got school board members who are actually students. You know, they're non-voting members, but they feel like they're a part of it. And I think, you know, you've seen that bunch of kids here tonight, and it makes me feel good to see kids involved. And I think it'd be a good thing, one from each high school, and school maybe work with the school department, get them to come up with a plan to let them actually seek election at their school, and you know, have students run for it, and whoever gets elected will be serving here. You know, so.
Good idea.
But I'd like to refer that to the operations committee.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Two quick things. We recently just had a ribbon cutting for the preserve, which is, it's actually in Roane County, but it's part of Oak Ridge City. When that thing is built out, it will be bringing in $8 million a year in property tax. It's pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And the other thing is, please vote. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you all very much.